is, like you say, if a bunch of those collide in the same level, and the ability for the players to juggle what charges they want to spend offensively and defensively. And I think the correct sort of the runner who does the best job of the judicious use of their spell slots might come out ahead here.
Yeah, I mean, if you were to plan out the dream, you would have Nuke at level 1, Fade at level 2, Cure 4 level 3, Life 2 could be a little higher, it could be 4 or 5, but you would have those major important spells spread out some. But if they're stacked on top of each other on the same level, that's really going to limit what's available to you. As we are off to the races. Lit 3, Fire 3 available at level 1 in Bane.
Yeah, it's Sforzando's taken Lit 3 and Bane. The price was right for both of those for sure. Lit 3 does have higher base damage than Fire 3 too, but probably Fire 3 also hits the undead harder, so it's an interesting choice.
And Cure 3 and Harm 4 are available in White Magic. I think I'm taking the Lit, the Fire, and the Cure 3 and calling that a day for level 1. It's a little more on the same level than I would like, because it means I have to choose between one of the elements in Bane. And I think between them I would probably take the Fire 3.
Cure 3 is going to be pretty handy if things get hairy early game, but it's going to be outclassed by late game, and then you're really going to hope that Cure 4 is available. But in battle, it can still save your bacon.
Yeah, and we talked about this before the race started. Heal potions are going to be at a premium with this party, because the black mages are not black mages, the black belts are not going to have a lot of armor to absorb damage with. So they're going to need a lot of heal potions to stay alive. And in the late game, that could be very problematic. So having a Cure 3 helps offset that, because it will replace 2 or 3 heal potions.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to restore, about 100 every time, so or more, even out of battle. So that is definitely going to save you some heal potions, as you say. One of the tricks of this game is that that's the only out of battle and inside dungeon healing you have are those heal potions, and the 99 limit might well come into play here with the only one healer.
Sforzando takes down Garland, which is going to be some useful early levels. Only enough to get him to 2 because of the bonuses, which are reduced if you were used to what you've seen out of the tournament. They are getting 4 times experience, but they're not getting the flat bonus. So that especially shows its face in the early levels, where you don't get the quick levels like you would have in the tournament flags.
Yeah, that decision was probably predicated on trying to keep the black belts alive longer. If you got too much of an early boost, you would see the people, killing off a black belt for the experience distribution earlier, and I don't think it would be as interesting. So that's probably why that was done. Sardia's at the Pirates now.
And something early had Stone Touch, so Czar has a black belt down in the best way possible, because he can bring that one up anytime he wants to in a dungeon without needing a life spell. So that is the ideal scenario, in fact.
With all the early AoE, the Pirates aren't going to be too much of a concern, and indeed he takes them down.
And that's level 4, and you get rewarded with a boat. So we haven't seen a sighting of the TNT as of yet. That is, of course, one of the things we have to watch out for. They'll need it to advance on to the rest of the world. The 3-man strats being used by 2 out of our 3 featured runners.
Yep, Sforzando just won a seed at the very end. He won the final race of the previous stage, which keeps him right amongst the leaderboard. Sardi is a name known to many people in the Final Fantasy Randomizer community, one of the admins of the league in the previous tournament. He's almost synonymous with the game, and Zalnop recently had a very strong finish in the previous stage, so it's good to see him getting featured here, one of the newer entrants in the competition.
Warp and Fast at level 2. Not necessarily the level I would have liked him on, but that's pretty good. And Heal 3, Fog 2. Now, this is exactly what I was talking about too many spells on one level, because that's 4 spells I want on one level. So inherently, I can't do it.
No, you gotta be... Something does have to give, but it's probably not going to be Warp, and I don't imagine it's going to be Fast either. So those are both very helpful, and Fast can't be cast by an item, so you really need the spell.
Yeah, Fast is the most automatic of those spells to me, and Warp is hot on its heels. So Fog 2 is going to have to go bye-bye, unfortunately. Wish I could have, but can't take that over Heal 3. But Heal 3 at the low level could be useful in boss fights where the AoE is getting spammed on you.
Yeah, it's even better than Cure 3. It's almost Cure 3 on both or everyone in your party, right?
So we have an additional 5 runners off-stream. The one noteworthy thing I can see so far is Fuchsia Fantasy is just doing a 2-man team. He also picked up the Stone Touch on 2 of his black belts. So with them down, he's doing the 2-man. Looks like Artea is also doing 2-man. He's got his black belts taking a nap. Question in chat, under these rules, can they class change? They can class change, but I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see it. I think the only reason they would class change in this round is if you know there's a red wizard spell that you want. Like if there was a life 2, that would be too much to pass up on.
Yeah, there's very little gear that your red wizard is going to be able to equip that your red mage can't. So you're likely only going to see a class change for a spell slot availability, and even that's a bit of a gamble because you're not going to be sure which spell slots you unlock by promoting either. So the likelihood is that there's just nothing to gain from doing it. Masters are strictly inferior to black belts, so there's really no incentive there.
Yeah, the Masters are going to gain less magic defense per level, so even if you're only going to gain 3 or 4 levels going through Temple of Fiends, that's still more magic defense that you could have had that you're giving up on. Defensive purposes, there's going to be no difference between the class change, so it's really down to the spell slots, because even as far as swords go, well, Masamune is number 1 and Sun Sword is number 2, and Red Mage is going to be able to equip both of those.
Sardi had taken advantage of his stone party members in Lit 3 to fry a bunch more ocean-going life and really rack up some early EXP here.
So I haven't seen anybody make their way to the Dwarf Cave yet. We've got 2 treasure chests available there to avoid a trip to the Marsh Cave. Or you could be Artea, and you could probably go to the Marsh Cave anyways.
Yeah, there's nothing in Matoya's. 2,500 cash isn't bad, and some other garbage. And we're finally going to see the Dwarf Cave here coming up on Zalnop's screen in your bottom right.
So because we are back to defeat Chaos, we are also back to the crown will be required because you'll have to get the Mystic Key. And also required is going to be a trip into the Marsh Cave. A little less daunting when you have Warp, but it might warrant a trip to Peninsula of Power to gain a couple levels before you go. Don't know if anybody's going to be brave enough to do that.
Yeah, Zalnop checks out the Dwarf Cave. The only item of interest of the 2 chests was perhaps the silver armor. He resets out because he's not interested, but that's something the Red Mage could have equipped, and it's got very nice absorb for this point in the game. So we'll see if anybody else decides to keep it.
Temper and Ice 3 are at level 3. Life 2 is at level 3. And again, those are spells I don't want on the same level, because Ice 3 is the most useful of the elemental spells, and Life 2 is a must if it is learnable.
I think at this point you can't be too choosy, right? Because they got to be at some level, and once they get higher than level 3 or level 4, you're not going to have many charges anyway. So I think as long as there's only 3 per level you want, you should be pretty happy with what you see there.
Yeah, but when you get into the late floors of Temple of Fiends, you probably want Ice 3 to deal with the waters, and you want to have Life 2 charges to make sure that you can recover. It's not ideal. There could be spell shortages. Watch for that later on. And fire 2 arachnids. So remember what I said about will anybody be brave enough to do a Peninsula power grind? It will pay off if you do.
And those fire 2 arachnids are just a little taste of what you're going to get on your way to the Marsh Cave now.
And you know what? Off stream, somebody is doing exactly what I wondered. In fact, 2 are. Ali Gur is doing that, so is Fuchsia Fantasy. So 2 runners on Peninsula Power right now could potentially pay off for them later on. Spell money when you're here in Elfland, plus more magic defense to deal with AoE spells. Fire 2 is not going to be that scary when you level up. It's just almost anything's going to be a wipe when you're this low a level.
Well, a single cast of Fire 2 isn't going to wipe you, but 2 or 3 is going to barbecue your party pretty good for a while yet.
Yeah, when you're sub-level 5, anything that's AoE is scary. Very cheap tents and very cheap houses, oh by the way.
Yeah, we've definitely got some market crash prices here.
Looks like Ali actually got down to just the red mage on Peninsula Power and might be done with that grind now.
Yeah, it gets risky when you're down to just one person who doesn't have any save items. Although the red mage is a good one to grind for all the early spell charges too. So Sardia is gonna keep that silver armor. I was wondering if somebody would.
Well, it does have the advantage of being spell money. There's no money like spell money.
There's pro ring money and bottle money. Those are like spell money, aren't they?
Second class.
I guess.
Depends on your flex.
I mean, if you offered me Nuke or a pro ring, I'm gonna buy Nuke if I have anyone that can cast it.
Uh-huh. So the other interesting thing for me is going to be if somebody doesn't take... Apparently we found out what was causing stone. It was the creeps. So they're still in plentiful supply around here.
Sforzando's got a pile of tents now, and he's going to head to Marsh Cave. And it looks like he's going to keep his black belt Dan the whole time, so... It's,
Let's explain real quick what Sforzando is doing. When he does a reset, he's doing it as a soft reset. That is, if you're visualizing the NES in front of you, you have the power button and the reset button. If you just held the reset button, you'll go back to your last save, but increment wherever you were on the encounter table. So you will skip the fight that he was just in. If you did a power off and power on, you'll start over at the start of the encounter table. So Sforzando was doing some manipulation that anybody can do. It's really not that hard. You save, you reset if you don't like the encounter you're on, and you try and take some steps to get around it.
Yeah, with a little bit of practice, you can navigate the entire world map without so much as an encounter if you're not interested, once you have, a few dozen tents to repeatedly save every so many steps. The basic idea is you memorize the number of steps before your first encounter, and you can always get that many by doing a hard reset. And if there are longer gaps further on in the table, then you can sort of keep track in your head how many fights you need to take before you have a nice long stretch. And that's one of the first important strategies to learn to really save time on the overworld of Final Fantasy Randomizer.
What a marsh cave this is going to be, because we just saw shadows with poison.
Yeah, not pretty. They got a lot of potential to ambush. They're one of the deadliest.
You do have warp though, so if they're able to get the TNT, and if they've got a couple charges, they're going to be able to get out of here easily enough. That is the nice thing about an early warp availability.
Sforzando even has exit, but I'm not sure if he's high enough level to have a charge of it yet. I didn't see.
Well, 2 casts of warp is going to get you out of here, so maybe 3. 3 if you go to the south side. But it's really easy to get enough charges with that. So these crawls even having dark helps make this a more unpleasant place because it's just taking longer for every battle, and that's gonna always feel really uncomfortable as a runner. Warple Sortle makes Czar happy when he finds it. He might even keep it the whole time even if he can't use it.
He loves it so much just to look at. But it'll probably sell for a pretty penny, so I think he'll have to part with it.
Stinger on the gargoyles. This is not a fun marsh cave.
Is it ever a fun marsh cave? I mean, besides for the audience?
I mean, there's been some easy ones out there. It can happen. A question in chat about the price range options. So the rules of this round are prices are between 25% and 400%. And we have seen a lot of things roll to the cheaper side of that, and that's just RNG. So we didn't get what we were looking for in the north side, and Sforzando's going to have to go to the south side of the marsh cave.
Those like $260 or $280 houses that you're ogling at could have easily been 10 grand, so our runners just got nice and lucky this time around.
So it looks like off-stream a couple of the runners are in this marsh cave as well, Zarnux and Fuchsia. Artea might be done already. Looks like he is. He's already done with the marsh cave. So a little while ago, I was going to say one of the other things I was curious about in this round is if somebody will do the high-level black belt grind. In the tournament with high experience bonuses, we saw people take the black belt to level 40 in part to cause enemies to run away from them and also have a lot of attack to go against high defense fiends at the end of the game. As the league has gone on, that strategy has fallen out of favor and not really been fast enough. So it's curious if, given the party composition, we'll see anybody return to that strategy.
Yeah, over the course of the tournament, that strategy ebbed, and then it finally, because it was such a high EXP set of flags towards the later end of the tournaments, it became the de facto strategy. But with these races in the league and the slightly smaller experience bonus, it hasn't been as effective. Like you say, it just takes too long compared to just being a little more lean and only leveling up as much as you need to beat the boss. Being a little more risky, in other words, has been paying off. And yeah, it will be interesting to see what happens here. Sforzando gets to the wizard fight.
And in the last round, they just didn't need as much because they were only beating the Phantom, and that's a far cry from having to get past Kraken 2. These wizards are not going to be non-trivial today, and Sforzando really needs to kill them before they do that.
And he just says, no thank you. Wizards, despite their name, don't tend to cast spells. With Script Shuffle they might, but in the vanilla game they just hit like a truck, and they're unrunnable, and they're quite tough in terms of their absorb and their magic defense. They are susceptible to lightning, though, and with Lit 3 at level 1, that's why most of the runners aren't going to be afraid of them. And, well, it didn't work out. Maybe you should have been afraid of them.
I can understand why Sforzando didn't want to try and walk a TNT out of here with just the red mage. I don't know if this was his last chest, or if he had one more to check after this. But I would have liked to have known if that's the TNT first, if at all possible. And it looks like Zalnap just a little bit different luck, and he's through that first try.
Yeah, I think with Lit 3 at level 1, it's... Oh, look at that. It is a TNT in the wizard chest, so everyone's going to have to get through that counter.
Yeah, and that may have been Sforzando's last chest. If he routed it well, he checked everything else before that fight. And so he already knows that's the TNT, in which case what he did makes absolutely perfect sense. I mean, it makes sense either way, but...
Yeah, Zalnot grabs the TNT, and then he's going to Zal Nope out of there. And he's off to surely return it to that kindly old king in the Northwest Castle.
We didn't find the crown, did we?
Never mind. Forget the kindly old king. He's just going to go give that to Narek and blow the canal.
That makes more sense to me. So by the way, one other nasty thing about the wizards is they resist fire and ice AoE spells. So the only decent damage you're going to get against them is actually the lightning spells, which will not be resisted. They're not weak to them, they just won't be resisted. So Sforzando did have that one chest left in the northeast, and now he knows for sure where the crown is.
Question from chat. What does the alignment part of the stage mean? The names of these three stages, alignment, chaotic, neutral, and lawful for stage 6, are sort of gentle nods to the Dungeons & Dragons character alignment system. And it sort of pays homage to the fact that a lot of this game's themes and mechanics were drawn from Dungeons & Dragons back like 30 years ago when it was made. In this case, the black belt and the red mages seem to be the most neutral thematically. And you'll have to allow some creative license, but that's the idea.
Zar is able to pick up the TNT, and Sforzando working his way through there. We haven't mentioned at this point what some of the features we're seeing from the randomizer on display are tonight. Zalnop and Zar have both changed, actually Sforzando has as well, the background for their menus, for their battles, for all that. And as a result, they've got different colors there throughout the battle. That is one of the options that's available when you start a new game now, with the newest version of the randomizer. Also, Zar has palette swap on, so his enemies are looking different in battle. Now Sforzando is able to get his TNT, with his lonely red mage left alive, and hopefully he's got 3 charges of warp.
And he does.
And also hopefully he's got plenty of save items. Cures may or may not be required. Yeah, I don't think he's going to have interest in any particular encounter right now. He just wants to get back to Elfland.
He's going to hot-foot it all the way through the woods. He has enough tents that he can easily manipulate the encounters all the way there if he really wants to, but we'll see if he just chooses to run instead.
Yeah, sometimes it's just not friendly to that. Like, if your first encounter is going to be in like 3 or 4 steps, that's just not friendly. The time you lose in menuing, it's just not going to make it up trying to avoid those encounters. But sometimes you're able to go deeper in the encounter table and actually get enough of a break to make it worthwhile. Zalnap's going to turn in the TNT. And Artea is actually doing a Peninsula power grind right now. Interesting. You know, I think when I thought that... that's a tongue twister. I said it looked like Artea was done with the Marsh Cave earlier. I think he might actually have wiped in it and then gone to Peninsula power to get levels.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing he's going to do. He's not going to, like, sit around and wipe over and over again. He's going to say, okay, this is too hard. I'm going to cut my losses now, go grind, and come back when I'm a little more confident. So even though if that might not have been necessary because he might have just got sort of a bad impression from some early challenge in the Marsh Cave, it's still going to work, right? So I think that's his plan.
And again, hello to everyone joining us on Speed Gaming 3 tonight. We appreciate everyone turning out to enjoy another round of the Randomizer League. I am Trenton, joined by Nitz, and we're just having some fun with this thing tonight.
Yeah, you might need to buckle up for a bit of a ride tonight. The previous few stages of the Randomizer League have really been faster. They've either been more scavenger hunty, so you don't have to go down the final dungeon, or the very previous stage to this one required only defeating the Phantom because the party composition was fairly weak with thieves and black mages ruling the day. But this time they got to go all the way to Chaos, and they got to travel back 2,000 years into the past and set things right, and that is going to be a challenge. So get ready for a nice long bout of Final Fantasy Randomizer tonight.
Now, winning time was just over 2 hours in the first round that was run of this. You did have a couple other people break the 3-hour mark, though, so anywhere in that gamut. That's Barzado able to turn in the TNT, and then becomes a question of what's next. Question in chat, who rolled this seed? This is a Maya special. For those who don't know, our admins all have meme names for their seeds. We have ZarNG, Maya Specials, and Ice Blue Productions. Still accepting suggestion on what we name Edgeworth seeds.
And Edgeworthless is not allowed.
So one of the things we've seen kind of change in the meta is a lot more people have started going to Earth Cave early, and it looks like Zalnop is about to do that. I also have seen out of the corner of my eye Zarnex is doing that off stream.
Yeah, I think in the days where the experience boosts were higher and parties were stronger during the tournament, you had more ability to go to the harder dungeons with greater impunity because you could just like pile drive your way through them with the strength of your young party. But with less EXP bonuses now, you're seeing lower level parties get further into the game and having to sail halfway across the world map to go to a dungeon that's a lot harder, that has a greater chance of you wiping, is paying off less and less. So I think that's why more people are choosing Earth Cave, even though it is less treasure chest dense.
And there can also be some confirmation bias. If you've seen it work too many times recently, then it just becomes ingrained in you. There's always something in that Earth Cave.
Yes. The other thing in favor of it is that the incentivizations of the Ice Cave and the trial, like the Castle Ordeals, have been turned off in this stage. So those two dungeons are not guaranteed to have anything at all. And, you know, that means that everywhere else is slightly more likely to have important care.
Now, when we get into a newer version of the randomizers, that can change the number of places that are available to incentivize. That's being tested.
Yeah, the next upcoming versions are more than just a coat of paint by any means. They are going to dramatically change some of the routing possibilities, and they should open up some serious new challenges, which will be really interesting to see everybody adapt to the way the game evolves and changes.
So Zar has just gotten our first encounter with Peds. As far as this early overworld goes, they're one of the best encounters for experience, which is why they get nicknamed EX Peds. And that's the fun name that they're given.
EX Peds are good, but arachnids are bad, and Zalnop just ran into a nasty pack here in the first floor of Earth Cave, which is proving to be much harder than I said it was going to be, which is classic commentator curse, right?
Okay, so something happened here, and I didn't get enough information to tell what it was yet. Zar encountered another poison, but I don't know which one it was. And the reason that I say that is because there's two forms that poison takes. It takes a damage form, and it takes a status form. We saw the status form earlier. If this is the status form again, then that's on what's called the Medusa script, meaning 3 enemies will have that script. If this was the damage poison, then we've seen both of those at this point.
Yes,
but Zar didn't take the hit.
The Final Fantasy mechanics are very interesting in that the effects of spells are not directly tied to their element. So there are several instant death spells, but there's one instant death element, there's the poison stone element, there's a time element, and you can independently resist or be weak against any of those elements and hit somebody with an instant death spell that uses the appropriate one. So the effect, it can be, disjoint from what you think it is. Zap is instant death, but it's time element. XXXX kills anybody with less than 300 health. It has no element at all. So learning the differences between the elements and the effects is an important part of grasping all of the different magic in this game.
We just saw the bottle for sale in Crescent Lake. That is one of the things you're going to have to keep track of because you will need it. You don't necessarily need it this second. If you don't have the money, it's not a big deal. Just make sure you know where it is so you can come back and buy it later. Once you have the canoe, there's 3 dungeons now open to you. You can go to the volcano, you can go to the ice cave, or you can go to Castle Ordeals. With Warp, it actually starts to make a lot more sense to take a gamble on either Ice or Ordeal versus what traditionally was the more standard play of going Volcano first. Less standard now. There's a lot less standard now.
It's amazing how the meta has changed from a specific sequence of events to just about anything goes, which is really strange because normally as a game evolves you would think that the one clear winning strategy would emerge, and yet we've seen the opposite thing happen over the last few months of this game, which has been truly fascinating to me.
Yeah, and we're kind of teasing about what's coming in future version of the randomizers, but many people have seen some of the streams testing the NPC shuffle versions that are coming up. When that happens, the world is going to be so open a lot of the time that you could have 12 racers and not see any of them follow the same path.
Yeah, it's the worst kept secret. The NPC Shuffle addition to the Final Fantasy Randomizer is available even to be beta tested on npc.finalfantasyrandomizer.com, but it is a beta. I want to stress that because I'm a developer that's helping on it, even though my influence on that feature is very minimal. It's almost all developed by another developer called Tardipan, who will be providing commentary for it in the future, actually, in an upcoming marathon. But I'm digressing.
So anytime you'd like to know more about the randomizer, the state of things, what's going on, what's being worked on, or suggest anything, there is a Discord for Final Fantasy Randomizer, and our dev team is very active there. You can talk to people like Nitz and just find out random stuff. Doesn't even have to be about the game. You can find out more about them than you want to know.
That's going to scare people away more than it's going to attract them, Trenton.
Alright, so it looks like Czar has found the Peds in a convenient enough position for him that he wants to get a few more fights here. And it's quite nice to do it outside of Crescent Lake, because you can dip right into the inn to recover your health to full. It's a whole lot nicer than any other grind spot in the game for that purpose.
Yeah, we were talking about using encounter manipulation to control your ability to scoot across the world map without getting in any fights, but you can also use it to specifically get into fights. So if you know, for example, that the first fight after a power on in this location of the world is going to be EX speeds, you can take them on, get the experience, go save it at the Crescent Lake Inn or use a tent, and immediately power cycle and get into another encounter and fight them again. So we're seeing Sar do something like that, because he knows they're early on in the encounter table, even if they're not the first fight.
I think they're actually like midway. There's something like encounter 4 or 5, but the steps are so close together between these encounters that it just doesn't take long to get to that fight. Because you don't have to sit through the whole fight, you just have to reset and you're on to the next stage of the encounter table.
Right, so he's actually taking advantage of both flavors. The power off after he defeats the EX speeds, and then a soft reset until he gets to them. So that's using both the tools in the box there to level up as quickly as he can at this point in the game.
Now, none of this is required if you want to just sit, play the game through, and beat it. Want to stress that part. We're just taking the time to explain what we're actually seeing, so that if you didn't know, now you do. With Sforzando in Castle Ordeal, it is worth mentioning that the path through Ordeal has been randomized. So these pillars used to have one path in the vanilla game that always worked, and that path won't necessarily work in the randomizer. So you'll have to find the right way through.
Yeah, there's no trail of breadcrumbs to leave, but if a racer does detect that they've been in this room before, they can cast warp to warp back to the room they just warped there from. If you can imagine, it just takes you back exactly to the last teleporter you stepped on. And so by taking advantage of that, you can sort of use the old left-hand rule where you try the next teleporter along the line until you find your way through.
And there's only 4 times you have to actually make a choice, but that's where you hope that the 4-pillar choice room, which is where Sforzando is now, is the first one to deal with, because then it's much easier to figure your way through here quickly. Czar finds the completely worthless adamant in this seed. You have no fighters, so no one's going to be able to use it.
On the other hand, you can cash that bad boy in for some cold money if you need it.
You could, but I think they're going to be grinding for some experience here, which also has the benefit of giving you a great big pile of money. So I don't think money's going to be in short supply in this seed. On the other hand, Zalnup's hit points on his red major in short supply, so he had to reset.
So we were just talking about how the meta has got to the point where anything goes, and that's exactly what we see, right? With Sardia in the Volcano, Sforzando in Ordeal, Zalnup leveling up around Crescent Lake, and we have no idea which one of these 3 is really ahead.
I was about to say I haven't seen anybody go to the Ice Cave, but thank you, Ali, somebody's going to the Ice Cave. And that's the great thing about a big race like this. I love seeing where everybody takes a different strategy, a different way of attacking it. And when you're doing that, you're always giving yourself, and I overstate this too many times, but it's true, giving yourself that chance to win. If I'm the only one to do something, then some of the time, that's going to work out and give me the chance to win. So Sforzando is down to just his 2 party members, which could actually be what he wants if the zombie dragons are easy.
Yeah, the final tile of the Castle Ordeals before you leave is what we call a trap tile. It's an encounter that you will always fight, the same encounter over and over and over again every time you step on the tile. So there's one here for these nightmares, for example. So he'll avoid this tile after he gets the chest. And at the end, if it's a nice, easy zombie dragon, which it might be because of the random stats of the enemies, he'll probably fight it over and over and over again to level up his 2 party members.
Yeah, the other thing about having a lack of healing is the more hit points and defense you get on your party members, the more durable they're going to be in Temple of Fiends Revisited when we're going to the end game. So there can definitely be value in having some high levels. Let's find out what we're looking at with these zombie dragons. So somewhere between 100 and 250, but they're hitting pretty hard.
Ooh, and they're very tough.
So this is not the zombie dragons that Sforzando wanted to fight. Yeah, there's over 200 hit points, so that's probably not going to work out with what he has. If he's got enough heals, he might get an extra level or 2.
I think he's going to take him on here until he runs out of Fire 3 charges, maybe?
Would make a lot of sense. He's not... That 70 damage is a lot, but it's not one-shotting you.
Yeah, looks like he's comfortable enough to take another fight or 2. I mean, he's gaining a level each one, so it's really tempting, and here's just a single one. Doesn't want to waste that Fire 3, goes for Ice. It's not going to do much, yeah? Here, we'll see how this works out. And he says, that's enough of that, I'm going to toast this thing.
Yeah, you might try some different things just to see what you can get away with, but if they were lower HP, this would be a lot more tempting fight, even despite the damage, knowing you could heal up. But once you know they're over 200, they're not great. And apparently we've seen something in the armory, and I'm kind of lagging on my end, so I'm going to refresh.
Looks like Zelnop's taking a wipe against the Australia special with all the poisons, snakes, and scorpions.
Okay, chat letting us know that the Armory, which is the big group of treasure chests in Volcano, had both a ribbon and a moss immune. The ribbon's extremely valuable, and the moss immune is not to be understated right now, because we get so used to fighting with just the bare fists of the black belt. It's really not until pushing level 30 or more, even, that the black belt barehanded is going to outdamage what he would do with the moss immune. So Zar has got that black belt equipped with the moss immune right now, and he's going to do more damage that way. And it looks like he's found the fires to be just easy enough that he wants to get experience from them.
Yeah, the nice thing about...
Go right ahead.
Well, I was going to say the nice thing about the legendary Masamune is that you can hand me down it to anybody, right? So when you're finished grinding those black belts up and they no longer need it, you just pass it down to the red wizard, or pardon me, the red mage, and all of a sudden he can take out somebody that's got 200 health or less without thinking about it either. So pretty nice find. Sforzondo hanging on by a thread here.
Hopefully he's got a save. Sharks with Blizzard, there's not a lot he can do against that. So looks like he's going Ice Cave, which is a move I definitely respect because you know people went to Volcano first, so your second play being something different makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, Sardia not messing around with this grind. He's pillaging items, pumping up his black belts. We'll see if he tests the Agama waters here too.
May very well. The fires could have been easy enough to get you some quick levels. They're not worth as much experience as the Agamas, but they're easier to get to, so you can get some basic levels from there without giving up too much. There's also the Red Dragon encounter, which is worth more than an Agama, so it's usually one you want to check out as well. If you are even committed to a grind, which not necessarily the case. Zar might have the levels now he wanted here.
If you're wondering, is he walking deliberately on all those lava tiles? The answer is definitely yes. They do inflict 1 damage on all your party members for every step, but they don't trigger an increase in your step counter. So you can never get on a random encounter while stepping on one, and you're also no closer to your next random encounter even after you step off. So basically you're freezing time from a random encounter perspective, and you can scoot as far as you want along the fire.
Zar working his way through this volcano, seeing whatever treasure is available. 3 runners, 3 different locations, lots of action.
If you notice during that heal that he had his actual heal item in the bottom right corner of his menu, so he had to keep manipulating the cursor to get to it. Every time you click on it to pick your party member, you have to go all the way back and click on it again. You'll see that if he can, he'll manipulate his items by using up something else. He can't in a dungeon use tents or something like that, but often they'll be cognizant of exactly how many items they have to try to keep the heal in the bottom left corner. Then you can get to it just by pressing up immediately, and that's something that is a little bit of a time save, but over the course of an entire game can add up to minutes.
We've got one runner who is further in the ice cave than Sforzondo is, so I'm trying to keep an eye out over to the corner to see if we find anything. So far, I haven't actually seen any noteworthy treasures. And Zar walking out. Interesting move.
Yeah, the volcano, actually, from a I'm just going to race down and kill carry sort of standpoint, is not very hard or very long. So, noping out of the volcano, even though it seems like, oh, you were so close to carry, couldn't you finish her off? It's perfectly fine. It's really only going to cost you like a couple of minutes to come back here and slay her later.
But hey, when you have the floater, it makes a lot of sense to go get the airship. And you know, if you replenish your supplies, that's not going to be the worst thing either.
No, absolutely.
So we now know where Floater is. We'll have 2 other items that we must find from a treasure chest somewhere in the world. They are the slab and the crown. Slab a little more limited in where it's allowed to be. Crown can basically be right to the last treasure chest of the last dungeon before Temple of Fiends.
The need for the crown is so curious, and it's probably something that people didn't even know until Final Fantasy Randomizer was made. But there is a doorway in the Temple of Fiends Revisited that is locked with the Mystic Key. Now, it's impossible to get that far in the vanilla game without already having the crown and the Mystic Key. But it's not impossible to do that in the Randomizer, and that's probably how it was discovered.
Those doors are checkable in vanilla. You can examine any door and find out about that. So, like for example, there is the reverse sea room in the sea shrine that is the same way. You must have the Mystic Key to go in there. Most people wouldn't notice it. Looks like we've got ribbon number 2 here in the ice cave, so that is a worthy find.
I guess I'm just not sure how you get to TOFR without the key already is my problem.
If you have the key and examine a door, it will still tell you if it is locked by the Mystic Key.
Aha!
So you can stand outside the locked door, that one tile in front of it, look at it, and you will find that out. So I was curious one day, because I played the vanilla game so many times, I wanted to, find out whatever little things are out there. So I knew about that sea shrine room before the randomizer.
Fascinating, and you learn something new every day. I had no idea about that.
Well, it's just one of those things. Why would it even need to be there once you have the Mystic Key? But that's the way they programmed the game, so the message is still there. But obviously, nothing special is programmed in the randomizer to block that door if you don't have the key. That's just part of the game, and apparently they were already well aware of sequence breaking when they were making this, so they put some fault checks in there to make sure you couldn't complete it without certain things.
Yeah, Sarda, for example, won't give you the rod unless the vampire is dead, but you can't get to Sarda in the vanilla game without the ruby that you can only get by killing the vampire, so it's a double whammy on the Sarda example, and this game is chock full of things to prevent sequence breaks, which is really impressive for such an old game.
Of course, after you have Lich dead, you can completely sequence break and defeat the rest of the fiends in reverse order if you wanted to. And I did.
Sardia picks up a gold bracelet from the Titan's Trove. Not bad, he's going to keep that. Sforzando's almost finished off the ice cave.
That's going to be his second best defensive absorb armor, so it's a very welcome sight, especially if you're able to pair that with a ribbon. Opal Bracelet is going to be the preferred item, but considering there's only one, you're not going to go through the whole game searching for it.
Yeah, somebody's going to have to be relegated to gold no matter what. If he really wanted, now that he has the airship, he could fly around, because there are gold bracelets for sale somewhere.
Yeah, but they can be very expensive, especially when we're talking about 400% prices, so until you have a really, really big pile of money, you're probably not advised to go just searching for them.
Yeah, it's a bit of a waste of time for a relatively little game. That extra absorb at this point might not be necessary, but you can be sure that by the time he tackles TOFR, it's going to be opals and gold bracelets all around.
A comment in chat that Czar is diving this Earth Cave before checking the Cardia Islands. I don't think that's a bad play when you think this all the way through, because if he's going to full clear this Earth Cave, he's searching for 2 items, not 1. If he was just looking for 1, then you have to check those freely available chests first. But when you're looking for 2, you're very likely to have to clear a dungeon as well, so he's able to do this, and then route the islands into his trip to Anrak.
Alright, Sforzando's been through the ice cave now. He's taken down the eye. Looks like he's gonna beat him up a few times.
Well, if you're already here, and you don't see anything scary, he's got the 2 men, so this is a good time to grind. And furthermore, if you feel like you're behind, then I actually feel like there's an advantage to spending more time leveling, even though that may sound opposite at first glance. But the reality is, if you're behind, doing the same thing as everybody else isn't going to catch you up. Being more durable for a hard dungeon, being able to do more damage to get past stuff faster, those are the things that can cause you to make up time.
Yeah, the reality is if you're behind and the rest of the game is, say, easy, you're not going to have much of an opportunity to catch up no matter what you do. So you kind of have to cross your fingers and hope that the going gets tough at some point, and your extra levels are going to let you catch up then when everyone else is wiping.
So Blaze on the eye is less than ideal. I don't think it would discourage me off from getting level 21 here with the black belt. After that, I might question whether or not I want to continue here, but 21 is a damage threshold where he's able to do more hits, so I would want that for sure.
And fun trivia fact, while we were talking about the D&D earlier, the eye was actually renamed from the Japanese version of this game to the North American one. It was a beholder in the Japanese game, and the sprite, the image of the enemy, looked like a very cartoony beholder ripped right out of the Monstrous manual. But to avoid any trademark, they completely crafted this eye from whole cloth for the North American game, and I think they did a pretty good job, because when I was a kid, that image haunted my dreams.
Yeah, and you didn't realize it was one of the easiest things to kill when you got down to it, but things we didn't know back then.
No, it was too terrifying. I was frozen just like my characters.
I mean, nobody was bringing a level 21 black belt to fight that eye back in the day.
No, and I didn't know black belts were good back in the day either.
So Rosado is done in the ice cave. He did take the black belt to 21. I think he probably would have wanted to go higher. I know my target would have been 32, but that Blaze does kind of force you out early because you just don't have enough resources to keep doing it.
Yeah, a lot of the best grinding spots in this game come with an inherent element of risk because you can't save between battles, so you kind of got to keep bubbling up, keep killing, and then slowly consume your resources, your heal potions and your risk of death. And at some point you got to call it quits. If you're doing something a little more modern, like an overworld grind against Tyros or encounter manipulated Peds, you can be a lot safer about it, because even if you wipe, it doesn't matter because you get to save so often. So choosing where you grind can also help you out too.
And we might, in this stage of the tournament, be using the term resources more than most, because you've got further to go, and still only those 99 heal potion max. I mean, when you only have to go down to Phantom, that doesn't take as many heals as getting to Chaos.
Yeah, it can take like 20 heal potions to restore, say, something like 600 health. And that's the kind of numbers you're talking about with a fully leveled black belt, right? Maybe even more. And if you've got some nasty enemies along the way chipping away at your health, you're going to blow through your heal stack before you can even get to Chaos. So we haven't seen... There's some Cure 3 and some Heal 3, so the Red Mage has some pretty good healing. So it's going to be tight, but just enough to be exciting.
A few of our runners have picked up their floaters now. Artea has the airship, and he's traversing the world. So you were talking about that option of getting the rod in the vanilla game. It will not give it to you unless you have the vampire defeated. One of the options we have under conveniences in the randomizer is to have the early mode enabled, so as soon as you're able to get there, you're able to pick up the rod. So you can do that either by finding the ruby early and walking there, or landing there with the airship and talking right to him, and he'll just kindly hand you the rod.
Yeah, there are a few early conveniences that have been in the randomizer for a while. The early rod and the early canoe, allowing you to receive the canoe from who we call the Canoe Sage without having previously killed Lich, is another one. I added early bridge, which allows you to just walk across the bridge you get after defeating Garland. But I didn't even bother making you talk to the king, because the extra time of having to walk up and talk to him really made it not feel as valuable as a choice. But since you can just walk directly over it right off the start, it made it a lot more intriguing. So that's why the early bridge behaves a little bit differently than the other earlies.
And from the first day that's been around, that's caused some routing changes. Cesar has used the rod to smash the plate, and now he is going on to the deeper floors of the Earth Cave. Could potentially pay off for him if he finds something really important here.
Again, if you're wondering why he's taking such a circuitous route, it's because there are trap tiles all over the place, and they're often in front of treasure chests, but sometimes to the side, sometimes in no man's land. So the experienced runners who know, where all the rocks are, know exactly where to step to get through with the minimum time wasted.
Except in the key chests, key rooms of Marsh Cave. Nobody remembers where those are. Okay, Artea remembers where those are. There's 5 people who remember where they are.
Yeah, there are some trap tiles in completely illogical locations. Just whether they were programming mistakes or just clever tricks, nobody will ever know.
Alright, so it's getting down to it for Czar. He's running out of treasure chests to find anything in.
If anyone ever
featured runners, he could be. Oh, there it is! Czar found the slab.
Dun da da! So that's one of the important plot items that is hard to find. Removed. All that remains now to get us into the proverbial go mode is the crown.
Crown will be the last required item that you must find from a treasure chest. But the biggest thing that has us excited here is seeing this strategy play pay off for Czar. This is the last place that most runners are going to go, especially if they came in here and did an early Earth Cave play. Then it's usually the last place you come back to. On top of that, he's going to have the first orb restored of our featured runners.
Yeah. No one's really sure whether it's fair to count the splits of how many orbs you've lit or which orbs. As far as split times go in a randomizer, they're really just recreational and maybe for record keeping over a long period of time, but I wouldn't put too much stock into who's the first person to light an orb. It's just academic.
Nevertheless, in this stage of the tournament, relighting all 4 orbs is going to be required, so it is when you have 2 measures of progress that really matter substantively. You have to get all 4 orbs, and you have to find those 3 items, well, 4 items that will be in a treasure chest somewhere. The TNT, the floater, the crown, and the slab. So, Zara obviously has 3 out of the 4 items and 1 out of the 4 orbs.
Question from chat. Is there interest in adding to the randomizer the ability to randomize which tiles are trap tiles? That's a fantastic question, and it's something that's come up a lot. The nuance of a question like that, which I could go on about at length, but I'll try to keep short, is how do you do it in a way that truly makes the game more interesting? Do you randomize only amongst the tiles directly in front of treasure chests? Do you randomly move them into doorways in other places? You can't replace a door necessarily, but maybe this tile right behind one. But anyway, it's an interesting question and something you can spend a long time thinking about, and exactly the type of stuff we talk about endlessly in our Discord. And so if pontificating on questions like that is something you're interested in, feel free to join and toss out ideas, because we're always looking for the next good idea.
Zaunup has just picked up the floater on his end, but out of the corner of my eye, I caught something. Salty Fry was fighting Astos, and what that means is Salty found the crown. And I think the only places that could be is either the islands or possibly the waterfall, because I'm pretty sure there hasn't been another dungeon cleared.
Well, if there... Oh, go ahead.
Zaunup found the ruby, which we know is not required.
And Sardia has headed off to the isles that almost bear his name. We'll see if he finds the crown here.
I am guessing that's the case, and if so, that's going to put Zar into go mode here. Sub-hour going into go mode is pretty nice.
When we say go mode, we basically mean it's not like you can head right to TOFR. It means that you don't have to hunt for anything. All you have to do is defeat the rest of the fiends by walking directly to them, and then head down to the bottom of TOFR and defeat Chaos. And there may be some other fetch quests you have to do, like, for example, converting the slab into the light finish language and going to get the chime. Having to do all that isn't unpredictable. So even though he still has that ahead of him, we still say he's in go mode because he can do it like consistently at his leisure.
Yeah. What go mode will ultimately mean in most randomizers is you don't have to find anything else. You know where everything else is.
Yeah, that's a succinct way of putting it. Thank you.
Yeah, he does not have to find where the other 3 orbs are. He knows exactly where they are and what he has to do to get there. And a good point in chat that he might still hunt ribbons. I think he's got 1. And that's true, he may want to put some effort into searching for ribbons, but he's not required to.
Yeah, there's a big difference between being in go mode and actually being ready to take on the Temple of Fiends Revisited, and we don't distinguish. And there is the crown, as suspected in the Cardia Isles. Good guess, Trenton, good guess.
So we have some racers going on here. A couple people have the floater, and it actually looks like Artea might be in the Earth Cave, so we could have a real race between Artea and Czar. Because Artea probably already has the crown. Can't see its inventory right now, so some of this I'm just doing on assumptions, but he does have the airship, so he probably got the crown.
Yeah, from a viewer perspective, the crown being in Cardia is actually kind of nice because that's a place that people are going to check pretty conveniently, easily, quickly, because they're right there. You just walk in and loot the place. So that will allow a lot of people to find the crown shortly after they find the floater and the airship, and should make for a great race.
And Sforzando just found his floater. So the third of our featured runners to find it. The dragon armor would be fantastic in any seed where you had a fighter turn knight, but not this one. So a question in chat, could it be possible to make the ruby mandatory, like need to feed the Titan? Would you like to elaborate on that, Mr. Design? One of the most evil things I've ever seen.
Are you talking about the Titan's Trove?
Indeed.
Right, so one of the things that we've been hesitant to do until recently, but we've you get to the point in the development of Final Fantasy Randomizer where Entroper, the guy who's really running the show here, allows for a lot of creative freedom. And so I said, I've had about enough with the ruby being meaningless if you find the floater first. So I nudged the actual map, and I edit the actual, in Titan's Trove area map, so that the Titan himself is simultaneously blocking the intersection of the east entrance, the west entrance, and the treasure chests. So no matter what, you need the ruby to get past and to get those 4 treasure chests. It doesn't mean it's mandatory, but it means it at least has a dedicated purpose in that you have to feed it to the Titan to get to those 4 chests. Then, the next level is to incentivize one of them, so that you make it so one of those 4 chests definitely has something important in it, and then all of a sudden the ruby becomes a rather important item, and that's part of Tardipan's NPC shuffle patch. So to answer your question, yes, it is possible to make the ruby far more important than it is, and that's coming up soon.
This is a very actively developed randomizer. It's always great to see one that is. We have a great team that works on it. Nitz is one of them, and Troper obviously has led the way in this and done a great job in maintaining this. So, a big round of applause from the community to everybody who works on the development side. It is greatly appreciated. While we're appreciating people, let's appreciate Speed Gaming for hosting us tonight. Chat, how about a round of thank you, Feasels? And I hope you're also appreciating our 3 runners, Zardia, Zalnop, and Sforzando, who are willing to do this in front of a crowd tonight. That's not always the easiest thing to do.
Yeah, and when you're restreaming in an environment like this, you have to play without chatting or background music yourself in case you're featured, so it's a little bit less fun for the individual runners. They have no idea what's going on, and they have to be ready to be restreamed, so they don't even get to have their usual fun with their own followers. So they are sacrificing a little bit to participate in these races for everyone else's benefit, and that's awesome.
Looks like Zara has found these Agamas to be pretty easy.
And Sforzando is ready to take on Carrie by the look of it. He's passing around the ribbons, making sure his foot and cape are ready to go as much as they can be.
So the Agavas are doing something that we haven't talked about yet tonight, but it's one of the fascinating mechanics of this game. I have no idea why it's this way, but it's fun. The Agava is attempting to cast Invis 2. The thing about defensive spells cast by enemies is they won't work on the one that's casting it. So as long as that Agama is by himself, that Invis 2 is a complete waste of his turn and just letting you damage him for free.
Yeah, it's a bug that any area of effect spell that enemies cast on all their allies don't trigger on the caster, as you say. So things like that completely don't work, and they even go faster too. That's an open bug. So if you not only want to join the Final Fantasy Randomizer Discord, but if you're a hotshot coder and want to fix that bug in the original Nintendo game, you can be our guest. It's a doozy, so we haven't got around to fixing it just yet.
Alright, so it looks like Czar decides these Agavas are easy enough that he wants to drop one of his black belts. He got them both, I think, to level 21, which is what I said I would want. I would want a second one that was at least 21 for his ability to do damage.
Yeah, with black belts, the damage really starts to improve at 21, and then in 32, and then it goes nuts in the 40s. This the way it works is that every time your hit increases by a multiple of 32, you get another hit, which is pretty substantial. But for black belts, because they get to attack once with each arm when they're bare-fisted, they actually get 2 more hits, and all of a sudden the damage really goes through the roof.
Yeah, when the black belt starts punching things 8 times, it's usually a fair bit of damage. Sforzando gets the rod, and he is now on pace to go to Earthcave if he wants, or maybe he will explore the world and find the crown next, which could lead you to checking the crown chests for that slab before you dived into Earthcave. Who knows? Time will tell. So the other thing worthy of mentioning with these Agamas is that Invis 2 is basically a 1 in 3 chance, because he can do one of 3 actions. He has a skill list, we've seen, so he can choose to use the first skill in his list. He has a spell list, which is the Invis 2. He can choose to use the first spell in his list, or he can do an attack.
And in the randomizer, yeah, just to carry the thought, one of the features is that you can shuffle enemy scripts and enemy spells. So shuffling the scripts changes what enemies have access to what scripts as a whole, and then shuffling the spells within those control what spells are in the given scripts. So there's like a double randomization effect that means that any enemy can have any script, and any script could have just about anything in it as long as it was shuffled from another enemy in the vanilla game.
Czar had an interesting problem there. He couldn't get the Agama to hit Yogi, so he can't get Yogi dead, so he has to go looking for a random encounter. He actually had a problem with the way he was walking there. I know that sounds weird, but the tile in front of the door, you cannot get a random encounter on. So he was taking a step every round that couldn't give him an encounter till he tightened up his walking, and then he got Yogi. He got his encounter, he got Yogi down, and now he's happy.
Yeah, this game, in addition to having trap tiles that are always random encounters, have whole regions of areas that are encounter-free. And those are even lesser known. Like, for everyone that knows where all the encounter tiles are, there might be, a 10% as many people that know exactly where all the free tiles are. One of the classic places that people try to burn off an encounter is after you kill the vampire, before you go down into the next level of the Earth Cave. That entire room there is encounter-free. So people will run around for a long time wondering, where is that next encounter? I want to trigger it before I go down the floor. But they can't. They have to actually back up into the previous hallway to trigger that encounter.
So Sforzando is working on the quest chain to get the key. He's picked up the herb. And next is go talk to the nicest guy in the game. They say he's a real prince among elves.
Ho, ho, ho. He also One Punch Man, the king of the Northwest Castle, who I believe identifies himself as Astos in his final sentence as a living man before being crushed, coughing up the crystal, over to Matoya, get the herbs, down to the prince who just needed to let off some steam. And now we have the Mystic Key. Time to go looting.
So he'll go around checking these. We hadn't really seen him with any of the other runners. The interesting thing for him is not being in go mode is how far will he chase this before going to Earth Cave.
I think he's definitely going to clean out the key chests because he has no idea that the crown is not, or pardon me, not the crown, that the slab is not there. So as far as he knows, he could find the crown in any one of these, right? So you got to do it because they're all pretty easy to get to.
Everything but the Marsh Cave.
Oh yes, I forgot about that. And I don't think we'll see him head down there.
Now here's where things could get tricky for him. We know the bottle is available. So he could in fact go to the Sea Shrine before going to Earth Cave, which is a play people actually will commonly make. Just because we're seeing Dalnup and Zardia not do that.
Yeah, the mermaids have a ton of chests, and you might expect to find it there, which is sort of the vanilla location, right? So that wouldn't be a huge surprise to me, but if he checks every single chest in the Sea Shrine after doing that, that can take a lot of time. So that's where he would lose his time. If you're wondering to yourself, what difference does it make whether he finds the slab now or later? As soon as he finds it, he's probably going to check a lot less chests, especially out-of-the-way chests. So until he finds it, that's where he's losing time. Walking into the rooms, triggering all the random encounters to get to chests that he doesn't need to open.
Yeah, so for example, there's a couple minutes to save in the Sea Shrine if you're just going straight to Kraken instead of checking the treasure chests that are up by the mermaids. And so for our runners who find the slab before going there, they're going to save that time, and it's just spotting an advantage to another runner.
Yeah, the trip to the mermaids is pretty long. And although there are a ton of chests there, it's hard to say if it'll be worthwhile. And then you have all of the out-of-the-way chests on the way down to Kraken, too, including like the Sharknado room and all the other rooms that we give wonderful names to, like the Sea room that is just a gigantic room that has one single chest tucked away in the corner of it. So there's a lot of time to be saved if he knows he doesn't need to.
And Sforzando is checking the rest of these crown chests, including at Temple of Fiends, and it makes perfect sense from his perspective. Which is an important thing to realize when you're watching these runners with the benefit of knowledge from what other runners have done. What Sforzando is doing makes absolute sense. And if other runners were in his position and found things in the order that he did, they would probably do the same thing. And percentage-wise, it was probably a higher percentage play than what worked out for Zar. Meanwhile, Zar continuing this grind, and it becomes this question of how far will he take it.
Yeah, Zar's old school. He's played this game for a long time. Probably is just about as long as anybody. And the old school says, I'm going to grind until I have ground it to dust, and then I'm going to grind a little bit more, and then I'm going to waltz through TOFR as low stress as possible. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him take this to like almost its end. Maybe 42, maybe. Maybe not, but it wouldn't surprise me.
I think the two...
And he immediately stops. That's perfect.
I was right about to say, and I'll own up to this, that the two most common target levels are going to be 32 and 40. At 32, he gets another pair of the two hits. That doesn't sound right. He gets two more hits at level 32. And then at 40, there's a lot of advantages to 40 where a lot of overworld encounters just start running away from you. And you're probably going to get 42 fairly easily by the end game if you're level 39 or above. So there's advantages to that as well. And then make sure for the hardest bosses in the game that you've got level 42 and the additional hits. Zar encounters Carrie, who's looking a little under the weather today.
Either that or she's just got her evening wear on and some pretty wild highlights in the hair there.
I'll have you know you just killed the joke I was about to make.
Well, he just killed the boss he was trying to fight, so, I mean, everyone's killing things today.
Orb number 2 for Zar. And if he's picked up the bottle, or he'll probably pick it up now if he hasn't, then he should be heading over to the Sea Shrine.
Pop quiz.
Slab, he could pick up the chime next.
I was going to say pop quiz, who remembers where the bottle is?
I think it was in Crescent Lake, but if I were running this, I'd make it a point to write that down.
And he's got some golds for sale in Gaia. 22k is not too bad. He's got plenty of cash now.
Yeah, this is what I mentioned earlier. Once you've done a grind for levels, yet as a nice byproduct, you pile up a whole lot of experience. A whole lot of gold with that experience. So, shopping's not going to be a problem for Zar now.
Yeah, you can sort of coast around with your fat stacks and make it rain. Gold bracelets, pro rings, everything you could ask for, all the latest fashions in Magic.
Zar just did something that was really savvy, and I don't want to go by it too fast. He used heals until he got his total down to a 9. The advantage of that is he can now use buy 10s to get to 99. So he doesn't stop at, say, a 93. He gets all the way to 99 and gets those 6 more heals faster and easier, and it's better.
Another thing we'll see if he does, once he's finished the bottle fetch quest and the chime, and he's gotten all of the key items, we'll see if he manipulates his total number of items to have a heal in the bottom left corner. Because that will save him quite a lot of time, because we anticipate a lot of heal dispensing in TOFR, and if it's in the bottom left versus having to press down and then left a couple of times to get to it, that'll save you quite a bit of time over that final stretch.
Zar going Tyro killing. Tyro's a favored monster of several of our community members. Some favor killing him mercilessly, and some prefer letting him go, as Zaunup is able to pick up the slab now.
Yeah, there's a lot of debate over how exactly to prepare the Tyro steak, whether it's rare or well done or nuked. But at that point, it's probably so irradiated I wouldn't recommend consuming it.
And Sforzando has found some sandworms to farm. And Quad X is doing the job, so that's a very nice encounter if that's first encounter. Or you might just be testing out the table right now. The Tyros actually have quite a bit of HP, so they're not friendly for grinding experience from today.
They're not hitting too hard, though. Only 70 damage against a red mage, so you don't have to fear them too much either.
Well, the damage isn't going to be too much of a fear at this point. It's a question of how much time are you going to invest per battle. Because if somebody's able to get 3 times the experience in the same amount of time that you spend to get that experience, then one of those ends up in a big advantage. I lost track of what tense I put that sentence in.
It's okay, I lost track of everything you were talking about entirely.
If in 10 minutes, person A is able to get 3 times the experience as person B, then person A is at an advantage.
Yes, the overworld grind is sort of the antithesis of the Agama grind. You're going to do resets and encounter manipulation, and you're going to get slightly different encounter compositions depending on how things go, and then you're going to be able to save it whenever you want. The Agama grind, you're halfway down a dungeon, every tile is an Agama, every fight is exactly the same as the fight before it, every piece of experience you get is going to be very predictable, but you don't get to save it all during. So you just kind of got to literally pick your battles and pick your strategy and roll with it.
Zaunup is able to pick up the Earth Orb. He is the second runner to do so. Of our 3 featured runners, he and Zar have done that. Sforzando is still missing Orb number 2. and it could be a while before he gets it. Because I gotta figure if he's working this hard to level up, he's planning to go to the Sea Shrine. If he was gonna go to the Earth Cave, there'd be no reason not to go ahead and go.
Zelnop checking Cardia, so we can be fairly sure he's going to find the crown soon, and he'll be sitting pretty as well. A very strong showing from Zelnop, from how far he's come in the last just couple stages. It's really great to see the anybody joining this community even more recently already playing at a very high level.
Yeah, and sometimes the nature of the flags are just going to play into one person's wheelhouse maybe a little more than others. I think what we saw from a lot of these flags is just by taking a lot of runners out of their comfort zone. Artea was one of those to really benefit from it, and he's been able to make a lot of ground in this, but we've still seen 5-6 runners that are just really consistently up there every round. So, coming into this round, we have 3 runners who have put up zeros, which is the best score possible for the league. Artea, Minochi, and Tristal, with honorable mentions to Sho, who has just a .01, and Swarzando, who has just a .05, and also Quicklit, who's .07, and those scores looking very respectable at this point.
Yeah, the league is structured such that it's a bit like golf in that you want the lowest score, but it's a bit different than golf in that for every stage, which is something like a hole, if you will, whoever scores the lowest time, whoever wins it, kind of sets par, and everybody else's score depends on how much longer they take than that. So the people with 0, if they continue to win at least one race every stage, can finish with a 0 and sort of always be ahead of the people trailing them. But it only takes 1 2-week stage that they fail to win for them to end up with some positive score higher than that will drop them out of the first place stand.
Yeah, so I don't remember what the time difference was for Sho or Sforzando with those times, but I mean, you're talking about it was definitely sub 5 minutes that caused them to have a score versus being at 0, and you can have multiple people at 0 for each round.
Yeah, finishing 1% behind somebody gives you a score of .01. And since that's what score he has, he must have won a race in every stage, except for one of them in which his best finish was a single percent in time slower than the winner. If you're perhaps a little new to the Final Fantasy Randomizer, maybe you remember Final Fantasy, the vanilla game, but you've not watched this before, and you're wondering to yourself, is Sardia even playing the same game as everybody else? Because it looks a lot different. There are a number of flags in the randomizer that we call fun percent flags that just sort of change the look of the game, possibly the feel, without having any impact on the gameplay whatsoever. And Sardia likes to play with all of them on. So he's shuffling the enemy's palettes, so you've got Gur Sharks that are purple instead of gray. And a lot of people now are taking advantage of the background color changing to allow them to change the background colors of the menus. And Sardia is also using the sort of modern Battlefield look that's more inspired by Final Fantasy 2 and 3 and subsequent Final Fantasies. So while it looks different, he is, I assure you, playing exactly the same game.
Zarchik's 3 out of 4 chests in that Sharknado room, as I love to call it, and other people are catching on. The reason he doesn't check that 4th one is there is a trap tile where he would get an encounter there, and it's really not worth it for the extra encounter. I mean, if you knew there was a ribbon there, then you probably would do it, but otherwise there's just not enough incentive to check that chest.
Yeah, it's nasty because the encounter tile is rigged, so you have to step on it on the way to the chest, and again after you get the chest, so you have to fight it twice, and that's a lot of time if you really don't know that you need it.
Finds the Zeus Gauntlet. That's a pretty good find for the Sea Shrine, now that it's almost over. No sighting of the tail, and I don't think we're going to find it today.
Black belt dropped by a lobster there.
Oh my. Apparently, and I was looking at Czar's screen so I missed it, but apparently Zaunup did not translate the slab. That is an unfortunate mistake that's going to happen to every runner at some point. Waters having Fire 3 is a really not a good thing to find. And we'll explain that more when we get to Temple of Fiends Revisited, but they're going to be back in Temple of Fiends Revisited, and Fire 3 is not going to be fun. So Zaunup could either go straight and translate the slab, or he could go to Sea Shrine, and I'd probably go to Sea Shrine if I were him. I think that's what I did. It's like, I'm done. Just needs a minute before I go deal with that.
Forgetting to translate the slab is in the same family of rookie mistakes that that I'm liable to make as forgetting to pop open the bottle and go to the ferry, or forgetting to cash in the crown and getting the Mystic Key. That last one is the most painful because you're bombing your way through Temple of Fiends Revisited, feeling really good about the fact that you're ready to take on, the final sequence of bosses, and you just get to a locked door and you just can't walk through it, and your head sinks, and you go, "Oh, I gotta get out of here."
So, Sforzando found the black shirt. What I was interested in is that he got rid of the Zeus gauntlet instead of leaving that on one of the two black belts who are just resting their eyes right now. Let's call it that.
The pack animals? Yeah. Sometimes when you're making snap decisions because you feel like you got to rush, you just do the first thing that pops into your head instead of taking an extra 5 seconds to do something slightly more rational. And it probably isn't going to matter, but you're right. He should have just popped it on one of the other guys.
Orb number 3 for Czar, and looks like he still needs the cube, so he's going to go get the waterfall now. Personally, I like to route the waterfall first. Usually because that makes it easier if I'm still looking for an item to go ahead and get it there. And also it has the advantage of then I don't forget to go to the waterfall.
Yeah, if you can set up your route so that it is self-defeating in that it takes care of itself, then that's very helpful. You have to go to the waterfall to get the cube. So if you just always remember to go to that before you go to Onrak, then you never forget to go after. Get caught up in what you found in the Sea Shrine. You're like, oh, I've found whatever. Now I'm in go mode. No. Go get the cube. So if you do it first, you can't forget.
And here's what we knew could potentially bite Sforzando. And he came to the Sea Shrine before the Earth Cave. A decision that a lot of runners would make. Just in this seed, a few of them didn't. So they've been rewarded with the slab. Sforzando is going to be punished with all the time lost from checking all of these chests. He will, however, get levels out of it, so it's not completely bad. But he would rather have it the other way around, I promise you.
Yeah, when he finds out later that the slab is in Earth, he's going to go, crud. Because exactly the kind of stuff we were just talking about, having to step on that trap tile twice in the Sharknado room to get to that corner chest, that's something that he is probably going to decide to do, because he doesn't know that that's not the slab, and he can't risk missing it in a place like that, so he is going to have to pay that price.
We've also got Zarnex and Ali are in the Sea Shrine at this point. Artea is actually working on the Sky Castle right now. Artea doesn't like to take the time to do a big black belt grind, so his is at a lower level than Czar, which will very likely pay off in a faster clear time to get to Temple of Fiends, but in Temple of Fiends, that might not necessarily work out.
Yeah, Artea is famously on the side of just good enough, just knowing in his head what the minimum amount of leveling he needs to do to win is. But he is outspoken about, not using black belts, not overgrinding them, preferring things that he can count on and level up faster. So this is exactly the party composition to test him. So we'll see if he gets it right.
Yeah, now Czar, with everything done, he's going to be able to go to the Mirage Tower and Sky Castle in Go mode. It's a pretty quick dungeon to get through. Most of them are. You know, a lot of dungeons felt longer in vanilla because they either were or were designed to be double dip locations. Like, for example, in Earth Cave, you have to go back and get the rod. I actually think they intended for you to come to Sky Castle, find out you need the cube, then go get the cube. I could be wrong, but I think that's what they intended.
Yeah, that's entirely possible. The first floors are not so bad, and they're pretty treasure chest dense, and you can find some pretty good gear there. But if they did expect you to find the Sun Sword like so early, that is a bit strange because it's better than stuff you find in the Sea Shrine. When I was a kid, like everything was getting full cleared. I had no memory from subsequent playthroughs of exactly what was where, so you bet I was checking every single chest. And when you don't do that, it's a lot faster.
And I'm going to keep an eye for a moment here on Artea's side. He's about to get to the Tiamat fight, and I'm also curious if that is in fact his last orb, which I think it is.
In your top right, you see Sforzando like hastily checking chests, scrambling around. He's looking for the slab. He's not going to find it. And he's probably got that feeling like, crud, it's probably somewhere else if it isn't here, and now I am likely behind. But he still has to check the rest of the Sea Shrine because he doesn't know that it's in Earth.
Yeah, the die is cast on that part. You've got to finish once you're here. Also, this is an orb dungeon, so you're going to go get the orb.
And then things like the mermaid walking between you and the door get really frustrating.
It just seems to add on itself whenever there's a point of frustration. There's just always a little more.
Yeah. There were so many points of frustration before FFR. One of the things the randomizer does is it actually fixes some of the most annoying NPCs. And I don't mean fixes as in like corrects a mistake. It literally fixes them so they can no longer move instead of walking around randomly and driving you crazy. There are quite a few that have been lobotomized, we like to say, that kind of keep them in one place.
Artea has just gotten by Tiamat, which was not a free fight at all. And that is all 4 orbs restored. Artea will be going to Temple of Fiends Revisited.
Sardia's blue dragon looks like it's been redshifted a bit. Maybe it's just traveling really at an unusual velocity. It's not traveling anywhere now. He's actually going to grind the blue D.
If it's easy, this is actually a good, sneaky good spot. Because like we were talking about, there's free tiles where you won't get an encounter and won't advance yourself to the next encounter. One of those is a wall that shares space with a door. So when he's walking to the right and back, he is never going to get in a random encounter here. So it is free to just go back and forth to get this blue dragon.
Yeah, 818 experience when you have 4 party members, that's pretty good.
And he might intend to only get experience on 3 of them. That may have been part of it.
Oh, now it's going to be 1091 each.
So, by contrast, what Artea has done is he has a black belt in the 30s. I'm not sure exactly the level, but he's done a 2-man party the whole way. So because of that, he got his levels without a dedicated grind. But he only has those levels on 2 characters, versus Zar has not a great third person, but a decent third person.
Yeah, everyone trailing Artea always has their fingers crossed that the Temple of Fiends Revisited is a doozy, because Artea is almost always liable to get there with the weakest party, but he was probably going to get there first. So if he can squeak through, he's going to win, and if he can't, because it's nasty or trolly in some way, then that's where you're going to catch him, and that's what everybody's going to be hoping.
And there's a few things we know. One of the things we know is that waters are going to be back here in packs of up to 6, and they have Fire 3. So if there's either a 50% chance or a 1 in 3 chance that you're going to be taking Fire 3s from an unrunnable encounter, that could be, let's call it challenging. At the very least, resource draining.
And you said Sardi is in go mode. Why is he checking chests? Those 4 chests in that room are so close to that staircase there in the Sky Castle that it's hard to turn up. And indeed, Sardia picks up the Pro Cape. So that's a shield, in fact, that anyone but a black belt can equip. So he's going to tack it onto his red mage. And it provides a 4 absorb, which is pretty good. Just as good as a pro ring and far better than any other shield, i.e. the buckler, that red mage can equip.
Oh my. Sforzando just found one of the few things that could pay off for him. He found the power gauntlet.
Yeah, this unfortunate need of his to scour the sea shrine because he doesn't know where the slab is means he's going to find anything that is there. And everyone else has been in go mode when they got there, so they haven't been checking chests. The power gauntlet can be used to cast Saber on the party member that uses it. The tricky thing about Saber is that it can only be cast on the caster. So your red mage can't learn it and cast it on somebody else even if you wanted to, and it is a huge buff to attack and accuracy that allows you to get more hits and more attacks, and can turn just about anybody single-handedly into powerful enough to defeat Chaos given enough time. So that is a big item for him.
We didn't have to put chat on Warmech alert, they were already there on their own, but no Warmech sighting for Zar. By the way, if you wanted proof that Artea is in fact human and not a robot, apparently got to the Phantom and found out he didn't have the key. So, Zar is in fact human. I'm sorry, not... Well, Zar is human too, but Artea is in fact human, for those wondering.
Some people would laugh that off. He is probably pretty upset with himself.
Well, and based on what we're seeing, he's probably still going to be able to go back to Temple of Fiends, but part of his strategy was based on getting there so much faster than everybody else that even if he took a wipe, he could probably redo it faster than they could complete it. But now, Zara is going to be so close to him going in there that I'm not sure he can afford a wipe. He basically needs to first try clear Temple of Fiends.
He hasn't done any of the crown chest quest though, right? So he probably has quite a bit of time that he has to scramble around.
With the airship, it's pretty fast. He's already done it back in Temple of Fiends.
Nah, well, you know. Forget what I said.
Yeah, there is definitely a pecking order for how nice versus complicated difficult it is to do the crown quest. And it's airship is number 1, distance second is with the canoe, and way back is having to do it the old-fashioned vanilla way with just the ship.
You see Sari using Temper to buff up his black belt of the same name. Temper is similar to Saber, but it's sort of a poor man's Saber. It's about half as good, give or take. And you can cast it on other party members, though. Both of those skills, if you're wondering why you don't remember them from your childhood, did not work in the Nintendo game. Sadly. Sad panda big time. Because they were black magic that would have made black belts, or black mages and black wizards so much more useful. However, since neither one worked, you probably don't remember casting them a whole heck of a lot.
So here's what the lead is for the race right now. When Zar finished Sky Castle, Artea was getting past the eye again. That's what we're talking about right now. Where are you going, Zar? Did he not do the crown quest?
He hasn't done it, but he also hasn't forgotten that he hasn't done it. Big difference.
But that does minimize the that does minimize how much time Artea lost.
It does. It doesn't change how much time he lost, it just changed how much he was leading by.
Minimizes the damage of it. It still hit, but it hits for 2 damage instead of 4.
He just had more health. I'm not letting this one go. It was still a terrible mistake, and he shouldn't have made it. But he is probably going to escape if... Well, that's a big if. The Temple of Fiends Revisited is not too tough.
Zar has the crystal. Having warp is also pretty nice. Hey, remember like an hour ago when somebody asked if they would class change? No sign of the tail and nobody looking for it.
No, there's not going to be any class changes tonight.
Right, Zaunop is moving along quite well, actually. He's still doing this blue dragon grind. Maybe a little long, but I don't think he picked up levels from a grind like Zar did earlier, so he's trying to get to that same point Zar was at. Zar now in Temple of Fiends. Artea not quite to Lich yet.
Those white Ds are looking a little off. So that's what the palette shuffle will do for you. Zara obviously knew where the encounter table was tilted and managed to avoid anything on the way to the Phantom.
There's several unrunnable encounters that you can get in the early Temple of Fiends. These chests don't cost you anything encounter-wise, and hey, they got a chance of having a ribbon, so why not check them?
Yeah, he was probably looking for the ribbon or the power bonk, but we know where that is. It's in Sea Shrine, and Sforzando is the only guy that's got it that we know of.
We also know there was another ribbon out there somewhere, so it was probably between Mirage Tower and Sky Castle. This is an unrunnable encounter for Zar, the Frost Giants and Frost Wolves. The Mage Staff is handy for being a free fire too. And this is one of the more unpleasant unrunnables about Temple of Fiends when you're doing it vanilla because of having to deal with frost.
Yeah, it can really chip away, especially if there's a ton of Frost Wolves and they all feel like using it a bunch.
Looks like Zar only has one of the black belts to 31, so before he gets to the main bosses, he'll want 32. Oh, did Sforzando take a wipe to Kraken? I'm not sure if I missed something there.
Is he even there
Zar
yet?
getting another unrunnable encounter with the worms. Boy, trying to watch too much at once right now, but Artea is on the carry fight. And Chad confirming that yes, Sforzando did take a wipe at Kraken, so... These battles are not free, folks. Especially when you're only doing 2-man strats.
Yep. Sforzando had a bad go when he didn't find Slab in Earth, and the wheels really kind of came off when he had to slowly scour the Sea Shrine. So losing to Kraken is just that insult to injury we were talking about.
Yeah, and he still doesn't have the slab, so he doesn't actually know yet if it's in Keylocked Marsh or Earth Cave.
Yet another unrunnable for Sardia, really racking him up. But that one's a piece of cake.
Artea is on the water floor. I haven't seen him encounter water yet. Oh my, if he skates by without seeing them, then he's on a much better encounter cycle than Zar is. Probably worth mentioning at this point that these Fiends and Warmech share their skill and ability pool, and Artea just got about the worst news he could. Kraken decided to reach out and touch his Red Mage. So he has no more Red Mage.
And there is absolutely no way to revive somebody outside of Life 1 and Life 2, so he's either going to have to go it alone or bail out now and cut his losses. But I'm guessing he's going to try and one-man army it all the way to the end now.
I mean, you have to. When you're that close to the end and it's a race situation, you have nothing to lose by trying. But this is where we see if the benefits of Zar's level grind pay off. Now we see Invis 2 actually working for these Agamas, and you probably don't want to try and melee them, because that wouldn't go well.
No, Invis 2 adds 40 evade to everybody, and that really cuts into your chances of hitting the first time, let alone subsequent casts, which stack and make them virtually invincible. to physical attacks.
So by the way, Artea did get past the water floor without fighting the waters that I saw. So he didn't get the fire 3s.
There's Carrie again with the wedding dress and the wacky purple hair.
So I was mentioning a little bit ago that the Fiends and Warmech actually share their skill and spell pool. So that means there's a nuke in the mix between these Fiends and Warmech, and 4 nuclears are out there, as well as some other unpleasant things like, you know, Crack, Swirl, Cure 4.
Yeah, just to keep things a little bit sane and keep some of the hard skills with the hard enemies and the easy skills with the easy enemies, the encounters are sort of segregated so that the shuffling occurs within everybody else and within the Warmechs and the Fiends. So that's why, even though they're shuffled, they're not completely random. Some things can only land up in certain places.
Artea against Chaos, first hit, 1 damage.
That's not good news. That is bad news.
Second did a little more respectable, so you know, it is in doubt. We have a race going here, folks.
Sardi again ambushed by a nasty encounter of 8 enemies, just chewing up the clock.
Yeah, his encounters have not gone well in this Temple of Fiends. Artea benefiting from Chaos's spell list, and he's constantly done spells that didn't do anything and kept Artea in the fight so far.
And now Waters. They've got nasty skills we discussed before and unrunnable, so you've got to take them on. And here comes the fire 3s.
And time caught up with Artea on that Chaos fight. He does take the wipe and has to start all the way over on Temple of Fiends Revisited. Zar now officially in the lead.
And finally, his red mage, curiously named Art, in reference to Artea, I believe, just saves him again by taking out the Waters with Ice 3. So Artea helping Sardia twice here.
Interesting that Zar actually decided not to race last night. He volunteered his services to be the tracker for that race, as Maya has done for us tonight, so thanks, Maya. Make sure we get that in. But tonight, he was quite insistent he felt like racing, and we'll see how if he feels that way in a few minutes or not.
Oh my! Well, Kraken gives and Kraken taketh away. So even though Artea's red mage was destroyed, so too was Sardius, to the tune of like 900 damage. There was never any doubt.
And for those who might remember that I said that Kraken killed Artea's red mage, just for comparison's sake, that was 2 different spots. Artea had his red mage in the third spot, or third splat, whichever. I mean, either one works with Kraken.
Good grief. That was savage. That Kraken was just taking lives the way some people take names.
Yeah. Now, if he's able to get to Chaos with 2 black mages, I'm sorry, not black mages, 2 black belts instead of 1, that could still be a big advantage versus what Artea dealt with, because he was doing it one man. So we'll see if he's able to keep the 2 alive.
Yeah, this will be curious. Even if
man, he's still 31. Oh, he should have gotten 32 before getting to Kraken. Well,
yeah.
This will probably do it if you survive.
Yeah, he definitely won. Oh my! Yeah, there's... The difficulty just got turned up to 11 here in like the last couple of hallways. I don't know, all of a sudden, you know, he had all those fights on the water floor, and we were all commiserating, but now things have gotten ugly.
Yeah, on the water floor he was just losing time. Here he's
Oh,
well,
good.
That's not looking good.
What the damn worms are indestructible. He busted out 2 uses of the white shirt for Invis 2, ratcheted up his evade by 80, and still just got beaten up. So, Sardia also takes a wipe in TOFR, and the game's back on.
And for comparison, I think, well, I'll double check this in just a minute, but I believe Artea is actually on the Lich floor.
So Sardia dives right back in. He doesn't feel like he needs to do any more leveling, runs into a pack of 9 OK-mans. We had a change of heart in the enemy name shuffle. They used to be called Bad Man, but we just felt like maybe that was a little too harsh, so it got nudged to OK-man.
So the other thing I'm curious about is if Zar is on the same encounter table or not. He probably did a hard reset before he came in the first time to find out what the encounter table was like from the beginning.
That is, in fact, what he did, yep.
So that's usually a good play, and then if things went badly, you can do a soft reset instead and be on a different spot in the encounter table.
And you know he wants to be in a different spot on the encounter table because, fiends aside, I'm sure he has no interest in a pack of worms on the wind floor again. He punched those worms for over 600 and they didn't die. They're the nastiest beasts I think I've ever seen on that floor.
Yeah, the other thing I might have suggested to Zar is, well, you're in a race and you feel the pressure, but maybe stick on that first floor and get level 32 on that black belt before you go on.
Yeah, you think it's just one level, but no, it's like hundreds of damage. It's the difference between doing 600 to the worm and wiping, or doing 800, 1,000 maybe, and not even finding out how deadly they are because they're all dead. So hopefully he takes the time to make sure he gets to level 32 this time, even before fighting Kraken especially.
Yeah, and it's not one level from here, it's one level from where he was, but he lost whatever levels he gained walking through here the first time. So that was too fast for me to see what level he's at right now, but he's definitely at a lower level. He's probably 28, 29.
I think I saw a 29, but I wear glasses, so you can't trust me.
Artea is back on the water floor. Still going with the 2-man strats. Oh, the snipe! I apologize, I missed this one coming, but GG to Fuchsia Fantasy, who pulls the snipe at 152.34.
Ha ha! Congratulations, dodged all the bullets.
Well done, sir. I'd be very curious to find out what his strategy looked like.
And how much of the real challenges did he just completely luck out and avoid?
Okay, so Fuchsia will be joining us, but he needs a minute or two first.
Yeah, thrilling finish. And we'll inform him, of course, that he was probably the 3rd person to actually challenge TOFR, with both Sardia and Artea wiping towards the end.
Yeah, I think he was an orb behind them is one of the reasons why I had kind of overlooked that early, but as soon as you take wipes, that changes everything. So if perhaps he did a level grind that put him in better position to handle that Kraken, like for example, if Kraken only killed one of his party members, and possibly even not the red mage, would make all the difference.
I just saw Sardia pick up level 31, so he's got the whole level 31 to go for his black belts now.
Well, you're in the right place to get experience, but the wrong floor. This is just... Those fire 3s are not pleasant. Oh, okay, this is the fight. This is the fight. As long as nothing runs away here, this might even do it in this one fight. This is a whole lot of experience because of those two big eyes.
That's
Edgeworth likes to call them EXP pinatas.
They look pretty squishy, and indeed they were both one-shotted.
I'd take this fight. Use Invest-A-Lit 3s. Come on, do it.
Yeah, at this point he must realize that he wasn't on. Whether or not he wants this fight, he knows he needs a little more EXP this time. Level 31 is so tantalizingly close, but so far from the 32 truck.
That's not a great experience encounter, but I still think it would have been enough. Corzar is a much better runner than me, so I don't spend too much time questioning him. It's just, boy, would I want it.
We can question him, we just have no basis to do so. And there goes Kraken, just picking winners and losers again.
Okay, so by contrast, Artea is on Tiamat 2 right now, and just his black belt. The red mage is down.
Oh, Sar loses one of his black belts. One of the good ones.
Can still get through this. And it looks like a wipe to Tiamat 2 is enough for Artea. He's bowed out of this one. And did see that Tiamat 2 had nuke, by the way. So. Oh, we got a Warmech!
And we got a
I
wipe.
Look back and we got Warmech. Come on, Chad, that needs some hype.
It does need some hype. And it's Zelnop, and he's going to take it down because he's a boss. And he doesn't run away from Warmechs.
This also could be very interesting to find out potentially what Warmech is sitting on that we then also know isn't with other people.
11 hits. That black belt just didn't stop punching till every loose piece of metal was taken apart. And he defeats his Warmech, thus validating his run. So if he does complete it, he will be the only runner, so far as I know, with a truly Warmech stamped approved Stage 5 victory.
So this starts to get fascinating as far as the battle for second goes, because Zara has left to get more levels.
Yeah, Zardia has left the building, and Artea just noped right out of the whole competition. He, for his purposes, is only interested in winning races. He's not looking for second or third or fourth, so he's going to go off and he's going to come back bigger and stronger, try to win the next one.
And the door can be open now to somebody who did a little bit more, but it's a little surprising to me to see Zar take this strategy and yet not have gotten 32. I believe now we're joined by Fuchsia. GG.
Thanks.
How hard was your heart pounding at the end?
I was shaking.
So you were off stream. Can you paint a little picture for us? What did you have going in? Did you suffer any to Kraken 2? We knew that he was hitting like a truck.
I made sure that I had a 42 black belt, and I just rolled with it. So I punched Kraken 2 out.
Interesting. So that was, you just grinded the whole way and then just beat it down one punch at a time kind of thing, and didn't run into anything that killed anybody in TOFR?
Well, I ran into the worms, which were not fun. That wiped my red mage, so I had to just man mode the rest of Topher. And then I ran into Twilight Club and barely got away, so I almost wiped.
Well, you wouldn't have been the only one. Artea wiped on Chaos first, and then Sardia wiped on the worms, in fact, right before Tiamat. And then we found out that you had taken the crown. So you were actually the third person down there, but the first one with enough of a party to get the job done. So GG and congratulations for winning the race.
Thanks again.
And real quick, Zalnop just got the Earth Orb, so he should be soon on his way into this Temple of Fiends Revisited. So Fuchsia, were you committed to the high-level black belt before you started this run, or did you see something that pushed you in that direction?
My early game was not good. I tried to farm the Frost Wolves at Power Peninsula, and I got 2 fights in, put a tent. I didn't have many houses or cabins, so I tried to take multiple fights in a row, and the Zombol Troll fight wiped me, so I only got 2 fights out of the 5 that I spent there. And then, I'm trying to think. There was something else in the early game that I felt I did pretty poorly, so I basically said, my only hope is that people wipe at Topher, and that's when I decided I'm going to get a 42 black belt.
Okay, so sort of the comeback strategy. You're saying the only way I'm going to win is if it's a particularly nasty TOFR, and I'm going to be prepared for that, eh? We were talking about that as being kind of the way you do it when you have to play from behind.
Mm-hmm. Agmas were pretty beefy, but I managed to be able to get them down without too much trouble.
And so what route did you take? When did you find the slab in Earth?
It was, I did Volcano, Seed, and Earth, and I think that's a pretty standard route. Someone might have done Earth first and been able to skip a large part of Sea Shrine, which, as far as I can tell, Sea had the Power Bonk, but I never used it.
Okay, so you did actually full clear Earth too. Or, sorry, Sea, pardon me.
Mm-hmm. And I full cleared Earth, and then finally found a slab. I just skipped one chest that's out of the way in Earth, and I was just hoping that didn't come back to bite me.
So Czar actually did find the slab in Earth even before he found the crown.
Oh yeah, I did Crown Lock. That was what I thought cost me time too, so I did the Crown Lock chest. And I got the 2 extra chests in Marsh Cave before getting out.
So, out of curiosity, did you see what Waters had?
Fire Free.
That would be it.
Yes, you did. No, but it sounds like the massive grind of the black belt was the missing piece of the puzzle, and that's something I thought Sar might do, but he stopped grinding early, and then he ran into that nasty 3 worm fight, and that's what knocked him out.
Where did Sar grind?
Czar did an Agama grind. He had done some other things to set it up first, but
he
had stopped short on the Agamas, so he didn't even have 32 for Kraken.
Yeah, no, he was level 31 at Kraken, which might have been a mistake, I might say, but he survived that barely, and then the worms did him in. Kraken took care of his red mage, and that kind of took the wheels off his train.
Oh, he had a 31 black belt going into Topher?
He had a 31 black belt in the Kraken 2 fight.
Oh, but he had 32. He had less than a 32 going into Topher.
That's right.
Wow.
Yeah, I think Artea was about that, but he only had a 2-man party, so he was really kind of shoestringing it, and he eventually forfeit. He forfeit shortly after you won, and then he wiped a second time, and then punched it in.
Tiamat had Nuke, by the way, if you didn't see that one.
Oh yeah, I punched him out pretty quickly. I think it was 1 round or 2 rounds. So I got like 2,000 damage, so I never saw Nuke.
Yeah. I guess at this point, Source Hondo is probably looking for a ribbon to complement his survivability. And I gotta figure Czar is planning to go much higher on his levels if he's left to grind at this point.
So did we ask where you ground most of your levels? Because despite winning in 152, you sounded like you had a pretty high level party.
Not too high level. I stopped the Agma grind at around 35. And that usually is enough to get to 42. As a matter of fact, I got to like 49, but that's because I got the experience from that 4 worm fight. And that was like 16,000 XP. And this is just my black belt got out of that, so I ended the game at level 49. But I got the Agmas at 35. I got quite a bit of experience at Sea Shrine and hit 42 just before Kraken 1, and I got more levels at Sky when I went there. Yeah, I two-manned all through Sea and Sky. And usually what I try to do is try to time my experience game so that I hit 42 just as I'm getting to Carry 2.
Yeah, it sounded like it was the way to do it. Everybody else was
pretty good place to get it.
Yeah, everybody else was trying to run a little too lean, and it cost them at the end, and you swooped in and took it with the higher level party. So, once again, nicely done. You can stick around with us if you like, or you can sign off and call it a good night.
No, I'll stick around, but I'll be quiet.
All right, well, let's take an overview picture. You've had pretty consistent results in the league. How much do the different challenges throw you or excite you, or what's your reaction to as we've done these different goals and flags?
I just take every round I just practice every round as I get to it and see what works and try to see what other people do and adapt. I like this round more than I've liked the last 3 rounds, and I'm gonna like the next 3 rounds more than I like this round, so yeah, I mean, that's kind of how I feel.
Bit of a good old traditional beat chaos kind of guy, are you?
Yeah, I like stage 1, and I'm gonna really like stage 8.
Yeah, I like stage 8 too, just because it's a good old-fashioned level up and beat chaos kind of seed, and I really like that it makes you get promoted, because when I was a kid, I was all about finding the tail and going and getting my team promoted. That was like my favorite part of this game.
I like that part too.
Sforzando, by the way, just picked up orb number 4, so he will be on his way to Temple of Fiends Revisited, where several of our people are now, except for Zar, who's trying to get enough levels to be able to finish it.
And Zalnop has taken on Kraken. So we're about to see just... he takes the leet damage, 1337, and it's too much for Lee. He was 1 T short.
Stream's a little bit behind, so... At least for me.
Real quickly, we'll say thank you to Maya. He tracked her tonight despite feeling very under the weather, and he's going to sign off as he's now tracked everything there is to track.
Good night, Maya. Get well.
Indeed, we all wish Maya the quickest recovery he can have. After all, we need him to race in some of these. And Zaunup, unfortunately, did not survive the Kraken 2 fight.
If you were keeping along, if you're not just joining us, that's not much of a surprise. Kraken 2 just sort of picks a character and kills him every turn, so it's sort of a race against time.
Looks like Ali is on the water floor, Salty is on Carry 2, and I'm not sure about Zarnox as far as our off-stream runners go.
Sardia looks like he's going to take the 3-man grind into the 30s. He's now got a powerful enough party that he's easily one-shot in the Blue Ds, so it's just, he's going to go as far as he likes, and then he's going to bounce back to TOFR.
Yeah, with second still being on the table, nobody knows what Fuchsia went through at this point, so they don't know how far you leveled. But after Zar took 2 wipes in Temple of Fiends, the natural reaction is going to be go get a lot of levels.
I also like that one of the things we were talking about during the race was how the meta has changed so much and people are going different places first, and that one of the things that a lot of racers are doing now is heading to the Earth Cave sooner, which is something you didn't see a lot during the tournament last fall. And it turns out that, yes, that was something you needed to do, because that's where the slab was, and doing that a little bit sooner would save you time. But how did you win? You won by doing a good old honest-to-God black belt Agama grind, which is exactly the older way of doing it. So it's hilarious that it took a little bit of both to win.
Well, I always say friends don't let friends die for Earth Cave, but there's some value to that play. It actually would have backfired in this seed because Slab was at Earth before and Floater was in Volcano, and Ruby was in Volcano, so yeah, if you did a early Earth dive in this, you were actually setting yourself behind. Did Artea do an early Earth?
I believe he did.
I'm kind of surprised.
I think Zar got it first and Artea second.
Well, I mean, how early? I mean, like really early Earth, like do Earth before Volcano.
I think they both went Earth after Volcano.
Yeah, because that's just pretty not too. That's not a bad play in general. I mean, I do that quite a few times, but I thought, you know, I have the means to clear C, so I might as well do C. More chests and more experience opportunities.
Yeah, you don't have to defend yourself. It worked perfectly for you.
We're seeing Sforzando work his dive through this Temple of Fiends Revisited. I wouldn't even presume to say who's leading at this point, because Zar getting more levels might be leading among these.
Yeah. We haven't seen on stream much of Tiamat or Chaos, but we do know that Kraken 2 is deadly, and the worms that share the floor with Tiamat are incredibly deadly and very tanky. So Zar not taking any chances here. Sforzando has no idea what he's in for. Zelnov is already wiped on Kraken 2, has a bit of an idea of what to expect.
Yeah, I've also not been spoiling everything I've seen out of those fights, so I wanted to save some excitement for when they're on screen, but there's some exciting skills and things. So Salty is on Kraken 2, just got past that fight, with 3 party members alive, including the Red Mage. So in very good shape at this point.
It's looking good. Lich 2 has Cure 4, which, despite being undead, still works just fine. This was before the days when they decided that undead couldn't be cured.
And Ali has also gotten past the Kraken fight, but with 2 black belts alive. No Red Mage. Zarnex, I think, is on an earlier floor in the Earth Cave, so that's our update on the off-stream runners.
Zar now, like, waist deep in Blue Dragon carcasses, but still not stopping. I think he's got whatever level he's got in his mind, and he's just not going to mess around. This is similar to the approach he took in the sort of marathon fun run they did to culminate the tournament. And once he gets grinding, there's no stopping him.
You know, when you've already taken 2 wipes in Temple of Fiends, you're really not interested in a third. Question in chat, what was the winner's time? That was at 1 hour 52 minutes and 34 seconds. I mean, I guess I could have asked Fuchsia to say what his time was. Hey Fuchsia, what was your winning time?
I forgot. I was actually looking it up.
That's humble right there. That's humility. I'm a champion, but I don't nickel and dime exactly my time. It was sub 2 hours, 92... No, 152 is 112 minutes, which is sometimes just thinking about it in terms of minutes is a bit easier when you're trying to do percentages.
Salty Fry, meanwhile, is on Chaos Fight right now with all 4 party members alive. So good chance that's going to be our next place finisher. Ali is on the Chaos Fight with just 1 black belt alive. So we have a chance anytime now to see our second place finish come across. And oh my, there it is. It was the solo black belt against Chaos as Ali finishes in second place. 2 hours, 13 minutes, 40 seconds. GG for Ali.
So every 11 minutes or so is 10% and 0.1 chaos points. So with about 22 minutes, you're looking at about a score of 0.2, which is pretty respectable for a second place finish in a seed of this length.
And there's Salty Fries finish 2 hours, 14 minutes. That would have been 32 seconds apart if that had been for the win. And think how easily it could have been for the win. Well, Fuchsia, we want to make sure we give people a chance when they come in, so any final thoughts from you?
Not many, really. I think I've spoken enough.
Do you plan on joining more races throughout the rest of the stage to defend your 0.0, or?
Probably a few, at least.
All right, well, good luck to you. We appreciate it tonight, and congratulations again on the win.
Thanks. See ya.
So here we have Sforzando getting by Kraken 2. I mean, Tiamat 2. Obviously, he had to get by Kraken 2 first. And he's got 3 party members alive for Chaos. Probably going to restore the first, because why wouldn't you?
Yeah, the old meat shield. Can't go wrong. Time for our first look at Chaos on stream. Sforzando did a lot more clearing, and he has a lot more items. He's got the white shirt for Biz 2. Ooh, Chaos with the Ice 3.
And that's a ribbon shortage.
Yeah, Foot there in the 3rd slot is the one that he's gearing up, and that's the one with the ribbon and all the health. So that's the only black belt he's really worried about. He's got haste on him. He's got Invis 2 cast, the power bonk used, another temper. This black belt looks like he's ready for action.
Good damage on that hit. We'll see if we get anything really fun out of Chaos, because he's got something else in the bank here. Not gonna spoil it just yet, but there's something else in the bank.
Spoilers! Chaos just teasing with some low-level magic here, but these 2 remaining Light Warriors with their ribbons are immune to such pitiful attacks. We'll need to see something heavy-duty if we're gonna be worried about anything.
And the white shirt making him a lot harder to physically hit. We've only seen spells and physical attack out of Chaos so far.
Oh,
there's a Bane.
That's not going to do it with the ribbons. Only has about a 1% chance of taking you out.
Chaos was not trivial, but Sforzando gets the job done at a time of 2 hours, 16 minutes, 33 seconds in 4th place. Wow, how close were these 3 runners?
And the other thing that amuses me is early on the race, we talked about how Sforzando wasn't even, in it anymore, and Sardia was way ahead. And here is Sforzando finishing before Sardia.
That is what happened indeed. And GG to Ali. Congratulations on the 2nd place finish.
Thanks. Honestly, I was surprised that I finished 2nd, because I went to ice. Kind of good because I found a ribbon, which probably did make me worry much. It was going well until Kraken 2, which wrecked my red mage, so I had one of the black belts that was level 12, I think. So it was and a ribbon, so it wasn't bad, and we saw Nuke from Tiamat 2, and Chaos I was just hoping that it was enough. 2 power bonks and the whole day to win, and it worked.
So what level was that solo black belt for the other runners who are just hearing this? You survived that with 1 black belt. What level was your black belt that you beat Chaos with?
High, actually. I think it was maybe 30. It was in the it was at least 32. It was not super high, because I think my red mage was higher level, actually. It was maybe around 32 to 33, I'm not sure, because I didn't check. 32, that's pretty much what I wanted to make sure I was at. I didn't get to 42, that I know. Pretty much hoping, so I had tons of charges. I was just hoping that my red mage and black belt, my solo black belt would the end, and it almost, were a bit unlucky, but it was fine. And I did beat the warming too.
All right, well, chat has now seen what I was teasing about. Chaos had nuclear in the bank. So for those of you who didn't see that, you can be happy about that. GG Salty.
Also had,
Thank you.
Mark had one also, I think.
And GG Sforzando also joining us in chat.
Oh, thank you.
So a lot to talk about. Sforzando, unfortunately, I'd say you took the more traditional route and it just didn't pay off on this one.
Yeah, I think I may have filled up on steak and wings too. I was probably a hair over level for it.
You say this, but there were a lot of people wiping in TOFR. I don't know if you had any did you have an encounter with Kraken? Did he get a turn against you?
Maybe got one. I don't even remember what he did, though. It wasn't anything crazy.
He was one-shotting anything he touched.
It
GG
was-
to Zalnop now, just finished in 5th place with a time of 2:19.
No, actually, I was wondering why, and I was going to come in here and ask why it took 152.34, because I know why it took me forever to get to Temple of Fiends. I just took all the wrong pathways. I mean, I must have set up 3 separate grinds.
Well, before you, we were counting you out, I apologize to say, but Artea was in TOFR before anybody, not a surprise, but somewhat underleveled and wiped to Chaos himself, which is curious because Chaos wasn't that bad, but obviously got nucleared. And then Sardia, who was on stream and we're watching now, was right behind Artea, but also suffered at the hands of Kraken 2, who was like one-shotting people left, right, and center, and limped past him with a couple party members only to get beaten down by the worms on the Tiamat floor, which had like 800 health, and he only had level 31 black belts, probably due to a miscalculation on his part, and he wiped there. And then Fuchsia swoops in with 152 and takes it. So, yeah, TOFR was pretty deadly, so your party was not over-leveled at all, really. You just happened to be just powerful enough not to see all the challenges.
I guess so, because, I just kind of waltzed right through Temple of Fiends.
Also, the Waters had Fire 3 if you missed out on that one.
Yeah, I reset my encounter table right before going in, so I never saw Waters. It was a little bit of a chunky encounter table at the beginning, but the only unrunnable I had was the 4 zombie dragons.
That would have been the way to do it. Salty, we haven't heard much from you yet. How did it go for you?
I just kind of took this one a little easier. Since I won last night's race, I decided just to kind of level up a bunch. So I did a pop grind to start with. So I was pretty much over leveled the entire time. Got up to 21 before I even went to Marsh Cave. And then eventually I ground up all the way to 40 on my 1 black belt on the blue Ds because they were pretty weak. They had like 250 HP, so I got up to 40 on them. Then I was powering through TOFR like everyone else, and then I got nuked by Kraken, and I did just enough damage to take out my red mage. And then the very next step I took, I got ambushed by 4 worms who did just enough damage to take out my black belt before I could take them out, so I had to go back in again.
Yeah, that's a familiar narrative for a lot of the people that wiped in TOFR, was that 1-2 punch of the Kraken and the ensuing worms. If you stumbled into them, it was ugly.
Like I just needed probably like another 5 HP because it almost did like the exact HP in terms of damage to my red mage too.
Now we have Czar working his way through the water floor. And he gets the water encounters again. So Sforzano, you said if you didn't if you did a hard reset before you came through, he wouldn't be getting these waters?
That is correct. If you hard reset and just go, like, you'll get 2 or 3 encounters on the first floor of Revisited. You'll come out of Phantom to a 7 metal slime fight. And then the next fight is 4 zombie dragons. The rest of the way you can run from all the fights.
He must have done a soft reset then, but I had assumed if he was going to reset before TOFR that he would have done a hard reset, but I guess that wasn't the case.
Well, one of the downsides is the encounter table's very chunky right at the beginning. There's really not a whole lot of long runs within the first even 15 encounters.
Yeah, for sure. It's particularly funny that we're watching him together now, because the first time he was here, You and Zelnob, we can look at the end screens. You guys were both in the Sea Shrine. You still had the Sky Fortress to do, and Zardia was like in the same place that he is now. So it's just fascinating that that lower level party he had just got destroyed at the very end here.
I mean, I really wondered looking at the time, because once we got to like the 145 mark, I was like, what's wrong with Temple of Fiends tonight? I knew I was behind. I knew I was very behind. Like I went Ordeals first. That yielded very little. And then I went Ice Cave because I felt like I didn't want to double dip Volcano. That yielded not much.
20
Kraken
hits.
2 has said, no red mage for you to Czar every time he's gotten there.
But at least Czar got his revenge that time. 10 hits for 2,600 damage. Good night, Kraken 2. May you rest in a bloody pulpy peace. And we'll see if he can finally finish it off here. I'm sure he's a bit tilted now and is really looking forward to putting a ribbon around this victory.
Yeah, this is a night and day difference party for Czar. He's came in here, his highest level black belt wasn't even 32 for that Kraken fight. It was 44 for this Kraken fight.
And this is the farthest he's got. He never quite made it to Tiamat 2, so he doesn't know what he's in for. So this should be fun to be along for the ride.
Yeah, I think that was my, like, I was working on a practice session that I didn't finish, but this game was very literally my first full complete game of alignment neutral. So I'm still trying to get my feet wet in this flag set.
There's Swirl from Tiamat. He does have Nuke in the bank, but hopefully Czar's able to skate by without that. He is. There's all kinds of fun stuff you might not see in any given run. Alright, so Czar is doing the very wise thing that every new runner should always do, which is when you just survived a tough fight, heal up, because you might get an encounter on the next step. Who's been there, done that, got the t-shirt?
I think Chaos forgot to do leg day.
I'm gonna point at Salty Fry on this one for.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened to me, except I actually did heal up after it as well. But it wasn't even enough. The 4 worms were enough to take out my 1 black belt that I had left at that point. Even with 900 HP on him.
And Chaos giving her all she's got here against Czar with the Ice 3.
Yeah, that was a fairly friendly Chaos.
You didn't get nuclear then?
No, I didn't get nuclear at all.
It's so
I'm
funny.
not even sure that how deep his ability list was, but pretty consistently we saw him favor the spells. And GG to Czar, 6th place, 2 hours, 26 minutes.
I never say die attitude for Zardia. It doesn't like to forfeit. If he shows up to the race, he shows up to the finish line. Question is only when, and how high a level is he going to take it?
And when you look at 2nd place on, this was 4 runners within 13 minutes, which is a pretty close race.
And you also recall that he was like a hair's breadth away from winning, but for some really nasty worms. He got past Kraken too, and if he had got past those worms, he might well have won too.
Well, I don't know if we're going to be able to get any words from Czar tonight, but Salty, any final thoughts you'd like to share?
Not really. Decent race. Would have liked to get by those worms. They were quite a pain.
Alright, good luck the rest of the ways. For Zondo?
Set the baseline down. I don't expect to win until probably race 10 or 11 anyway.
Well, the rest are just warm-ups. You shine when the clutch is in. Something like that. There he is. The man, the myth, the Zarenji.
You all saw it. It's no joke.
No, that TOFR was no joke. You were so close to winning, and then you end up coming 6th. How did that go for you?
You saw how it went. The Immaculate happens on my channel in my races. It only happens to me. I guarantee Fuchsia didn't see any problems like that, did he?
He saw some of it. You actually missed out on some of it, by the way. Tiamat 2 had nuke and Chaos had nuclear.
Well, at that point, I don't think it would have mattered because I had a level 45 red mage, or level 45 black belt, a level 35 black belt, or 38 or something, just something ridiculous like that. I mean, it's truly incredible, guys.
Yeah, it was an amazing race. Those worms, of all things, you survived that nasty Kraken too, who was just picking light warriors and killing them, and then you wiped to the worms when Tiamat 2 and Chaos might not have been so bad if you could have just got to them.
I feel I could have gotten through Tiamat 2 and Chaos if I had gotten the opportunity to. But it did not go down that way. And again, it's, I mean, the worm fight, I got back-to-back crits. And I think I got crit 3 times out of 7.
Do you know what level you were when you were fighting those worms?
I had a level 32 red mage, a level 32 black belt. Or they had to be above 32. They had to be like 34 at that point. A level 27 black belt, and I think my other black belt was at least 22.
I do believe your first run through your black belt was only level 31.
Might have to go back and check the VOD, but we were pretty sure that we were surprised that you only had level 31 when you went into Kraken. And we were paying attention, but that doesn't mean we're flawless. But that was one of the things we were going to ask you about. So if you thought that they were over level 32, that explains a lot.
I mean, I know I was right on the razor's edge, and I didn't really want to grind another encounter and face those waters that would spam me with Fire 3, as I only had 1 ribbon.
Yeah, for sure. You were just neck and neck with Artea, who wiped on Chaos himself. That opened the door for you. Then you got tripped up by those worms and had to you wiped there. And then Fuchsia swept in after that with a much higher level black belt and kind of hero manned his way past the last few fights with just 1 solo black belt.
Yeah, well, that's how the cookie crumbles for me. It's always immaculate. It's always something crazy, something unexpected that happens, and it's just like, wow, this is consistent. It's not a in between thing. It's consistent. So I guarantee you, if you give me the follow everyone, you'll be entertained.
It was very entertaining. You took us for a ride. For a second, we thought it was going to be an off-stream racer. We were going to miss the finish. Then you danced with it, and then you lost it. And then somebody else from off-stream you weren't even paying attention to swooped in and won. So always exciting, and it was a pleasure to cover your race again.
Well, I mean, it can't get much worse. It's the last race, Kerry. I was the only racer out of 8 or 9 to see Thunder from Kerry, and that cost me the race. So this race, it was the worms. Let's see what it is next race.
I'll be there, I promise.
All right. Thank you, Czar. It was a pleasure. Good night to you, and good luck the rest of the way.
Thank you, Speed Gaming. Thank you, community staff, everyone, viewers. Check out the Discord. It's a lively place, and I enjoyed this. I could have groaned about it and threw a fit, but I enjoyed this as well. So, GG, everyone.
All right, Nitz, any final words from you?
My final thoughts is that it was so curious that we talked about the origins of the game and the original strategies of the tournament from the last fall, and then how the meta has changed and people are doing different things now. And it turned out that the winning strategy was a balance of hitting up the Earth Cave a little sooner than you would have back in the day, but then going back and doing a good old-fashioned high-level black belt grind. And that's how Fuchsia Fantasy won. So it's a really sort of old meets new thing that we've got in Stage 5 with black belts and red mages, and I'm really looking forward to the rest of the stage. And I will be again commenting on Wednesday night, and I look forward to everybody tuning in then. We got another great race lined up.
Should be a lot of excitement ahead with the rest of the league. We appreciate all of you who tuned in and watched tonight. Thank you, Speed Gaming, for hosting us. We appreciate it. Especially Fiesel, who's always been great to us with the Final Fantasy Randomizer community, and it is always greatly appreciated. Nitz, it was fun doing this with you. Maya, again, thank you for tracking for us before he had to head out for the night. And just wish everybody a great night.
Good night, everyone. Good night, Meridian, BC.